Sorry.
I don't know. I think we're ready, Miles.
All right, we're good.
Folks, this,
Mike's on?
yeah, excuse me, the sound system picks up all the background chatter. So if we could minimize that, it'd be appreciated. I'm gonna call to order the planning commission meeting. It's, June the 10th, Tuesday, and I'll get an approval of the agenda.
Move to accept the agenda as presented.
Is there a second? There's a, just a minute, let Brett get seated. We got a motion for the approval of the agenda in a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, we'll move on. Anyone got a disclosure of interest they want to present to the items on the agenda?
I have a lot of interest in the agenda items.
Yeah.
No conflicts,
No
but just a
conflict?
lot of interest.
Well, thank you, I'm glad you do. I like lots of input about the items on the agenda, I feel bad if there isn't any. This is an opportunity for public comment about anything that is on the agenda that you'd like to comment about. There'll also be a time of the public hearing for the rezoning request for you to make any public comment. So you got two opportunities for the rezoning request. Hearing none, okay. Minutes from April the 13th. Has everyone reviewed them? Okay. Is there any changes, adjustments, corrections?
April or May?
May?
May.
May.
Yeah, May 13th.
Brett's not listed in the roll call, but it looked like you were listed in the minutes as making comments, but you weren't in attendance.
We got it, our bad.
Was the date wrong, Miles?
No, it's just Brett needs to be in the roll call.
Oh, okay.
We can make that easy.
Yeah,
I
that's
move to
pretty easy.
approve with the change.
Is there a second?
Second.
Sorry about that, Brett.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, we'll move on. Thank you. Communications, Miles.
Yeah, I do have
Anything?
one, if everyone takes one and pass it down. I just didn't have time to get this in the packet, but it appears that Clayton County is in the process of maybe doing something similar to what our own board is in the process of, kind of some strategic planning. It looks like they're using their contract with LEAP to facilitate some listening sessions. So obviously, we're within the county. Obviously, the county's been a topic of conversation here a lot at the planning commission in the past, so I thought you gentlemen and lady might be interested in taking, a active role in this, listening session. I'm gonna try to register myself and go. So yeah, we'll see. It should be a good event. It'd be nice to see some representation from Bath. The date's on there, there's a QR code, if anybody in the public is interested, this is also online.
Thank you for sharing.
Yep,
Thanks, Miles. That's everything you had, right?
that's all the communications at this time, thank you.
Okay. All right, let's talk about the old business then, Gary Lane PUD.
Yeah, okay, so just some background. So obviously, the planning commission has seen this a number of times, things have gotten a little bit complicated on this one, which, you know, it happens. The developer has asked that they receive a vote on this. If everyone remembers, there was a period in time where we were in discussions with representatives from the development team, which is, the Kesslers, and, in communication with our legal staff about different avenues that, you know, this can move forward, because again, my role here at the township, if people aren't familiar in the audience, you know, in the planning department, is to kind of shepherd these developments through, the process. In working with legal counsel and the development team, we ended up going the route where the developer wanted to receive a vote on this one. We advised the developer that, you know, we didn't think the planning department at least would be able to support a affirmative vote on this. The developer has opted to change the land use and amend their application, which they've done so, and we've reflected those amendments of their application in our BSNA system, which is a system the township and many townships use to track, you know, these through the process, to a plan unit development, a PUD for short. That has some pros and some cons for the developer, which, you know, we tried to work with them to make aware of. And again, you know, planning is something that's open to interpretation, especially when you do get into the PUD language, as we've talked even at this body in recent history. PUD language can be complicated, more open to interpretation, but also provide more flexibility, as was discussed even in our class with, MSU Extension when they came. The pros is some of those dimensional standards that were challenging to the development team could be relieved through the site plan review process if they change it to a PUD. However, that doesn't allow my department to take the view we once held within the site condo language as it applies to the drive itself. That drive language becomes more clear to us as, okay, this is a drive that you are now asking for to service this PUD with. And because we would take the view of it being a drive and no longer an access drive, quote unquote, as a part of the master parcel within a site condominium, it's now the drive serving the parcels themselves within a PUD creation. We felt we were not able to give an affirmative recommendation. For the developer, that could possibly mean a denial vote tonight. It depends on how the planning commission votes, obviously. It's, you know, you guys' pleasure, of course. The planning commission, or the planning department obviously feels that, you know, we should uphold the standards of our ordinance to the best of our ability. What that would allow the developer to do if they received a denial vote tonight and they've expressed some interest in, just to be transparent about the communications we have with the developers, if they get a denial vote and the main reasoning that they're hearing, you know, from this body for the denial vote is the drive, matter, they would like to seek a variance from the zoning board of appeals related to that drive. So, that's kind of the path that they've at least expressed interest in. Now, that means they could go to the ZBA and possibly, as I tell everyone that goes to the ZBA, I don't care if it's for a deck, shed, fence, whatever, you know, or a plan unit development. I have no idea what the ZBA is gonna do. I don't try to call it. Even, I think, Commissioner Almarigi, when you were on the ZBA, sometimes I was like, oh, slam dunk, this is gonna be a win, and then it would get voted down. And then, I've seen ones where I think it should get approved and it gets voted, you know, or I think it should get denied and it gets approved, so it's just random to me. But if they get approval, then they would be able to come back, variance in hand, say, hey, we have a variance for the drive, now we'd like to work with you guys on what you think about these dimensional standards under that PUD land use. If they, get a denial vote, then they're either, they're squashed, and they're indicating that they're done. I would say, you know, their only other recourse at that point is to amend language or work with us on the text amendment process. Obviously, the planning commission's not, powerless in this situation too. They could obviously say, well, you know, that's a shame that we lost the land use, you know, we wanna direct the planning department, even if it isn't with the Kessler Family Development, nor should it ever be targeted at one developer. But let's say that 40-unit PUDs at a scale of that size, or it could be any level of units, or something that this body's interested in, we direct the planning department to, you know, provide us with options on how we could amend our own text to allow these land uses to, you know, propagate throughout the township or within these districts, whatever you guys wanna do. So,
Miles, can I clarify?
Yeah.
Ask a clarification. So, the vote today is purely to accept this as a planned unit development, to move from a site condo development to a planned unit development?
they've amended their application to, be applying for a planned unit
And
development
that's what we'd be approving.
tonight.
Great.
And so if we approve that, they still have the issue of the drive being an issue.
Well, if you approve that tonight, so like if you approve, because there's two actions that would have to happen tonight, right? So you would have to approve the site plan and then recommend approval of the special use, permit. As indicated in our staff report, the planning department feels like if you approve the site plan, that would be problematic because that'd be in direct conflict with our ordinance. Because of the
Which
private
segment of our
drive.
ordinance?
The segment that applies to private drives.
So, but this is a little bit more complicated, right? Because because it's going to be parceled out into individual parcels owned by separate owners. So wouldn't that come under the subdivision ordinance? If we were to approve the planned unit development? Because,
Yeah, but that subdivision will be serviced by a private drive, and right now our cap is, and how our private drive language is intentionally worded was to serve dwelling units, like, we don't have a carve out. I think I get where you're going, but we don't have a carve out that says like, a private drive can service 13 individual dwelling units or one subdivision. That would be a way to amend the private drive ordinance, and then, you know, I could get behind that interpretation. That's what has been a little bit frustrating with this process for me, is like, I see a lot of amendments that could get us in the end zone, but just none of those have been brought forth. And so that feels like we're hitting a wall when we don't need to.
If the planning commission approved this, would this still then have to go through the board of trustees?
It's the special use permit would still have to go through the board of trustee.
George, you had something?
To mention that, this is happening in all the rural areas around, this isn't something new even to Bath Township, we have it here in our own township. You know, this is what we're, wanting to do and hoping to get it approved and move forward with this project. If not, then, you know, there's things that we're willing to do, for the township, and there's, you know, things that you guys have asked, you know, from us in the past, and, you know, things that we will work with and do, but, this is kind of where we're at. This has been going on for a really long time, and we just either wanna know that we're gonna continue with it or we're done with it.
Yep. George, you had something?
Yeah, so we need to talk amongst ourselves for a
We
little bit.
widen the roads will have a 6-foot walking path.
We need to try to figure this out real quick. Okay, so, could you clarify the drive language, the private drive language?
Yeah, here, let me just switch off and I'll go
And
through it
then,
real
so
quick.
we actually have 3 different avenues we could look into to see if we could, because it'd be nice if we had an option as a board to make a decision amongst ourselves whether, you know, if it's a project that could, that we could stand behind as a group and be, you know, make a decision to make an adjustment to the, either PUD or the article or the drive issue. Amend one of the two, or maybe all of them, to give us leeway, some type of language that would give us some flexibility to, amongst ourselves, decide this is important, and these are the reasons why we should approve it, even though it's kinda against what we have down for the rule.
At this time.
At the-
Another question I got. If we approve this as a PUD, or how will we approve it, what control or do we have over issues that have come before? One, the emergency access out the west side. It's now an 18-foot wide, whatever, which I think should be a full street. Sidewalks, can we require sidewalks? That was an issue before, 'cause I know that the developer at one time wanted to have wider streets to walk in the street, which I'm opposed to. They should have sidewalks and narrower streets. So I guess the question is, how much control over those issues will we have under a PUD?
Yeah, so a couple of things. One, approving this as a PUD right now, again, I have to restate the planning department's view. I hear what the developer representative is saying, where, do you see this all over? Like right now in DeWitt Township, Woodside, they're building a development similar to this. I think it's 70-something units. It's one point of access. 79 units, one point of access.
That's the one on the west side of Wood, just north of, south of Clark? Boy shot.
Boy shot and wood.
So, yeah, that's correct, but,
The one that's on the south side of Clark Road, that's only 9 units.
Where they cleared all the trees out?
Yeah, that's 9 units there, and then further back, if you went down Wood Street, I don't know what that inner, street is, but on Boy Shot, they're coming in, there'll be 79 lots there.
but where I have to be at with, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's okay.
Okay, where I have to be at with being Bath Township's planner is what does our language say? And Bath Township, just a little historical, like, in 2016, this community decided, hey, we were having a lot of problems with private drives, right? And in my opinion, in 2016, kind of threw the baby out with the bathwater. Now, recently, that's why you're seeing all these little new emblems on here. This just got uploaded to MuniCode, the service that hosts our ordinance. We amended the private drive language to kind of open Pandora's box back up. And allow private drives to exist in the township so we could do some more interesting developments. We have landlocked parcels that are problematic. You could even argue that we're devaluing those parcels if they can never establish a drive back to them so you can build a house on them. So there were some problematic things and there was a rationale of why to do this. What we attempted to do at that time was open Pandora's box, but not too much, but like famously in this metaphor, you know, that's kind of hard to do. So now what's being proposed is, 40 units serviced by a private drive. So as far as the planning department's concerned, this is in violation of the zone, in violation of the township's ordinances, but in this case, an ordinance that doesn't particularly live in the zoning ordinance, but elements of it are zoning related. There are a lot of text amendment type solutions to this problem. I wouldn't recommend, I'm at odds with the development, I guess, on this one. I wouldn't recommend an action in the approval tonight as our meeting goes, cause I think it will just, it's not something we can do. If any action was going to be taken by the planning commission, because they are in favor of this project, but they know we're up against a wall in terms of what our language is, then remove the wall, have us look at the language.
But do we actually have a wall?
I don't know, it sounds like you think we don't have a wall. I think we do, though.
Well, so after our last, I think it was our last meeting with the Somerset development, where I was the lone no vote, and there was a clear understanding on this very same topic, right?
Yeah.
I took some time to take a close reading of our ordinances.
Okay.
And so I can develop an argument. I would argue an effective argument, but like, effective is what, like 6 no votes and 1 yes vote, or, either in support of this or against it. And
Okay.
the challenge is how we wrote our ordinances. And so, we have places in our ordinances where we are very clear, like, the road shall be built to the standard of the county, right? That's pretty clear language, but I think, many commissioners said, well, we have other ordinance languages that says, that gives us the flexibility to provide variances
Yes.
to those elements. Now, we don't have a set of ways of interpreting how we make decisions. Do we, in alignment with kind of legal standard, say that a more concrete restriction will outweigh a more generalized flexibility? So, as we stand, my interpretation is we can make all sorts of decisions here, right? And we have the flexibility of doing that because of the lack of clarity of our ordinances.
I'm looking for that language that we referenced last time.
So which related to the road or the flexibility?
No, not the road, related to the flexibility, the ability to create relief within the PUD language.
So it's 19.08B4 sub A.
Good call.
4, yep, okay, so I was on it.
So this is within the PUD ordinance.
Yeah.
Now, this gets complicated because I think that this also gets into the subdivision ordinance. which has its own language related to private drives. But likewise, it also has its own language related to variances to the subdivision set of ordinances because of the PUD. I'm of the opinion that there's no reason for us to deny this as a PUD. I couldn't find any language for us to suggest that. I think it's important for the developer to have a PUD because, not of the road, but because of the parcel size problem.
Yeah, but
Right.
the road, I could get behind what the line of thought you're on if, because where I'm always at is, can I defend this in court? If you guys approve this tonight and another developer comes and then they get denied, but what you're saying in this use restrictions, I could get behind that.
Then you have to,
You don't have to, it's
but
Plan-
the road document would,
well, we would, yeah, if you do approval tonight, I'll review our staff report real quick, but we would wanna make sure that, the condition is in place that whatever road gets established in whatever manner it gets established, the, association has a maintenance agreement in place, and that would be reviewed by the township and legal counsel before any PUD is created via the assessing department.
So I can lay out a legal foundation with key supporting provisions related to each of the ordinance sections, and then outline policy arguments in support of this.
Yeah,
Or I could do the same against this.
well, I get
What
what.
would you like?
Well, it's, you guys are in the driver's seat here, as long as there's a rationale and it's explained, which it sounds like you're coming up with a rationale and explained, that's fine. And famously, if you talk to most lawyers, when you talk to them about like, well, hey, what should we do here? The answer you typically get back from lawyers, well, what does the client wanna do here?
Yeah.
For the reason that you just stated.
So may I ask a question of the developer?
Yes.
I guess I should ask you that,
No,
right?
no, that's fine. Go ahead. Tammy,
So-
would you mind stepping up to the mic? It's easier for us to pick up the sound. Thank you.
So as a representative for the developer, you're a longtime member of the community and you've been doing developments throughout the community, right?
Yeah, I've lived here since 4th grade. And today's my 58th birthday.
Happy birthday, I'm
Well,
sorry you
happy
have to spend it in a planning commission.
Too many people like to throw that out, but it's the day, so.
So this parcel is adjacent to the Bath Township soccer fields, right?
Correct.
Could you talk a little bit about how this development may support or hinder the Bath soccer fields? And maybe spend a little bit of time talking about the family's contribution to our community.
Well, Daryl would be better
Of course.
to spit that out, but we have did a number of developments, in Bath Township. We own properties in Bath Township, we have the strip center, up here that, has businesses, in each unit. We have, put together the developments of Hawk Hollow, the landings, the hamlet, cottages. We're almost completed with the cottages on the back side now, so we're moving forward. This is vacant land that we had and wanted to do something with it that would work for the community, bring more people in. The soccer field area itself and to the back, I don't know if you all are aware or not, but the parking lot area that is actually the soccer field, that is actually our property that they park on for all of those. And going back into, back in through there or whatever, that's our property and we've never said anything about it. It's something that's good for the community. All of my boys have played sports within Bath. We've supported the sporting events, the fundraisers, the donations, and did that kind of thing. And we have worked with Bath Township on a number of things throughout the community.
So, thank you for sharing that. I think part of, I mean.
Go ahead.
We've been paying taxes on this property for 30 years.
Yeah. So some of the things that when we think about making these decisions is about, especially within planned unit developments, is what is the community asset that is provided? And that's the rationale for us to make flexibility in these decisions about what do we allow versus not allow. Our guiding standard is that we want a development to be consistent with the continuous developments in the same area and within the same zoning district. But if a development has a benefit to the community above and beyond, then we should feel authorized and provide some more flexibility in how that development. And so planning of development pathway is, in my opinion, completely appropriate for this development, in as much as it's adjacent to the Bath soccer fields and, that contribution to the community. And so I would be in favor of a planned unit development. Now, and that then gives us the ability to approve parcel sizes that are smaller than the zoning district, which is what medium density.
Yep, medium density.
Yeah. Which then would, looks like the plat still maintains those smaller parcel sizes, right?
Yep.
It does.
Yeah, it
So
does.
we could get rid of that district, then it's the issue of the road. Now, some of the things of us, our decision-making is, the policy elements is, is there justification that if we allow for roads that are built to less than the standard of the county, which we've had lots of conversations about what the standard of the county is, that it's far too strict for, what's appropriate for our community. Then the question is, if we allow lesser standards, is there a negative impact on the community or the health and well-being of the residents of that area?
Can I make a comment on that?
Yeah.
The roads that will be put back there are going to be county spec roads.
Yeah, if
The
anything, it'll
road
be
within,
wider than county
They're
spec
wide,
roads.
they're actually wider than
So
what they.
I'm confused as to what the issue then is.
Well, the issue at least for the county road commission, the roads themselves, like from an engineering perspective, like the asphalt, the substrate, the length of the road, that's all good. The standard that we're tripping for county roads is dwelling units served with one point of access. And even though our last condition talks about that, secondary easement for emergency access and construction access, if the primary one is ever, relieved, which we'll work on our easement language with the applicant, it would never be considered, and again, I think this is a issue, like a broader issue than Bath Township, where we need to go to the road commission and talk to them about their standards, is creating relief in terms of police, fire, construction onto Andrott, but that's also private, that north-south portion is private. So from the county's perspective, there's only one point of access and too many dwelling units. So that's where the county is coming in. But from the planning department's view on if the road they're proposing is adequate, yeah, Pioneer Newhall thinks it's adequate.
So Miles, that's based on what? Safety? Is it a safety factor or is there
Why
something
did the
else?
county pick 40 units as a single point of access? Well, it was picked a long time ago, but you gotta think in terms of who the county board is or the county road board is three individuals, and they service Clayton County. So for them, when the standard was developed back in the day, and Clayton County historically being a large farming community, 40 units felt like a lot of units to them. But as Watertown, Bath, DeWitt has built out, our three townships are running more and more, and this is why in DeWitt Township, they've expanded their private drive, because they would never get a number of the neighborhoods they have without that, because of this county standard.
Correct.
But it is becoming problematic for the southern tier of the county. But the road commission doesn't necessarily, they don't prescribe their standards for us.
So the pathway is we open up private roads to circumvent the county.
That's what they would like to push for. I think there is a second pathway, which is to apply pressure to them to amend their standards to reflect the growing nature of the township, or the county.
Yeah.
Well, and I understand too that the road commission and, the drain commission, they are for this, project. They would like to see it happen. They advised us that they recommended no curb and gutter. That's why we've got all the open space and the ditches on all sides.
Yeah, it's 'cause they're
was
soil
going on
type
their-
in that
based
area.
on their recommendations to us.
Yes, there's soil type in that area. It's the sandy soil. I think it's got adequate.
Yeah.
It's well drained, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So George, you're chair of the Township Road Committee.
Yeah, but I have no.
Could you lend your expertise to this? Do you have issues with the roads in this development?
They just have standards, and them are their standards, and, you know, unless somebody goes before them and petitions for, something other than that, they can, they normally don't, as far as I know, change their ways, but.
As a representative for Bath Township, representing Bath Township, do you feel that the proposed roads pose a negative impact on the health and well-being of?
Absolutely, no.
So,
The only problem is because Ann Drive is private, you know, it's hard, now, that's not saying 20 years from now, them homes get redeveloped, the people that live there that have out, you know, their children take over and they build them up, and then they come in and they hire somebody to fix the road, and the road becomes able to be public and can hook up to the MDOT road, and likely, no, there's no sidewalks up there, so I don't know what we'd be putting sidewalks from that subdivision, or that, development into, because there's no sidewalks currently going to there, so
Correct.
I don't know what that would serve.
What it
Other
would
than
serve
future-
is,
future.
my understanding, this community is gonna be hopefully a more affordable community for young families,
Okay,
which means kids. They need to be able to have a place to play and walk without walking in the street. When they're riding their bikes, and when they're on their skateboards and stuff like that, they should not be in the street. So I would say, okay, make the roads as narrow as you can, and still meet the county standards, I guess. And put sidewalks in. You'd be putting in less asphalt, more concrete probably, but less asphalt. So that's my position on this. We need sidewalks in a place like this. Now, I admit, where I live, there's no sidewalks, but that's primarily a retirement community. There's almost no, there are, I think, 5 kids out of 62 homes. And they're all in 2 homes, there's just 2 homes.
in the neighboring community, you mean?
No, we're not in the subdivision that I live in.
Oh, okay.
There's 62 homes, of which 2 have children.
And do they play in the street, like they have a basketball hoop up there and they play in the
No,
street?
we don't allow them to have basketball. No, they don't.
Well, and that could
See,
be part
'cause
of
if I was in
the
that sub-
bylaws, I mean, that's the reason for the 6-foot extension. The road itself doesn't have to be any wider than 24 feet.
Right.
But we're adding that extra 6 feet, and there will be a walking line. There'll be a line where the cars are not supposed to be, you know, going into, and where people can walk. And I wouldn't recommend children playing out in it, but, you know, I live on Center Road, and I'm way off the road, and I don't allow my children to even go down, you know, my grandchildren to go down by the road.
It's a little different speed than.
Yeah,
the
a
two
lot,
areas.
lot different speed. Yeah, they do 55, 60.
To answer your question, no, I don't.
so when this was site condos, everything was fine?
No,
No.
Parcel size was the,
It was Parcel size was the issue.
it's
Okay.
problematic, yep.
See where the
It was-
setbacks are, it's okay there, but it's not up front, at the front of the lot.
So the parcel size was too,
It's too,
I don't
so the
remember.
lot size on some of the lots, not all the lots,
just the
especially
width.
these up here, gets too small. And it's too small by not, I mean, we're talking, you know, a couple hundred square feet, but it's too small.
so keeping it as site condos would have to reduce the number of parcels
Yeah,
ultimately.
which then the project doesn't pencil.
Okay.
But with a planned unit development, see if we can adjust the parcel sizes to a little bit smaller.
Plan unit development gives the planning commission wide latitude to create relief from areas of the
Well,
ordinance.
I know that the number of units is critical to make this cost effective to do this. But if you go to a planned unit development, make the units a bit smaller so we can get a full road in for that emergency access. I know it's going to a private road, but in the future it may not. But if we build a house on both sides of that, you'll never get a road in there.
Well, we have the condition right now to carve out a,
18-foot wide.
Yeah.
Walking,
and we would,
Yeah.
and within the language of the easement that we would establish with them and retain with the township, we would say something about this area has to remain unobstructed.
but that doesn't open it up for vehicular traffic other than emergency vehicles.
No.
Yeah, I think if you actually build what you're saying, then people are gonna use it, and the problem, if you build it, people use it, and the problem with people using it is, and drive is private.
Well,
You wanna encourage
reserve
traffic.
it for future use, don't put anything there, you know, other than just a sidewalk, whatever's gonna be there. But just reserve the right of way for future use.
Well, that's,
I mean, I've talked about.
I guess that's what we're doing, trying to do.
I've talked about other communities where you go there and you know that a lot of foresight was going into the planning of these pieces. The roads, the houses are way back off the road, there've been all kinds of stuff there, and you drive through some of these communities, you can't even tell the residential neighborhood there. Now, we don't have the same density here in Franklin Homes, but I think we need to start looking at what we want the community to look like. Street trees is an issue, people say cars are going too fast. If you drive down streets that have been there for 10 years with street trees, you slow down, because the street trees creates canopy, friction for traffic, that slows people down. So street trees are critical from that standpoint. I know it's not an issue here, but I think there are ways to make Bath a really nice community and have it cost effective for these developers without giving up the way the community should look.
Mr. Ray, do you feel that that is, right now is where we start, or when we start doing the comprehensive plan planning, form-based code and principles get baked into that?
Well, that would be good, but do we just, if we're going to go with a form-based code and control and try to drive the community that way, how can we do that now without the form-based code? So that we don't end up with some developments that just don't fit.
Does this development not fit?
Well, it depends on what you want the township to look like. I've been driving that issue for a long time. We've gotta look at what we want the township to look like in 10, 20, 30, 40 years. If we don't start planning for that now,
I mean, of course I agree with that, but I guess if this fits or not is open to interpretation. That's an opinion-based question.
I don't see that the road width is that big an issue. This is not a thoroughfare. The only people I would think that would be driving on this road would be either occupants or visitors. I can't see that it's got through traffic. And the tendency that we've got for curb and gutter, to me, is not environmentally friendly or cost effective.
Well, I don't think the issue for Ray is the curb and gutter, I think it's the sidewalks, he wants the sidewalks, the planning commission, or planning, I keep doing that, the planning department stance with the sidewalks has always been, it'd be a nice thing to have, we'll grab the easement from the developer per our requirements from the ordinance, that's why we didn't even have to put it as a condition. But, just in our non-motorized plan, and just from what I know from all the internal work we've been doing with grants and funding stacks and everything else for sidewalks, I do not see us getting down to this area sidewalk, even in my planning brain for the next 50 years.
No, I don't either.
So I guess,
I don't.
we have, and I'm all about sidewalks and walkable communities, of course, I'm biased, I'm a planner, but it just, in this one scenario, I was like, to me, it just didn't feel like the hill to die on this development, because I just didn't see us creating walkable connectivity to this area for a long time. Because to get there, there just wasn't the density to necessitate it. If anything, the township needs, in my humble opinion, and what we were directed from the non-motorized plan, was to focus on, right now, we've gone to Somerset. With our next round of funding that we'll be seeking for sidewalks, we're gonna try to get to Hawks Ridge and then turn and go down Park Lake. That's where the public has demanded
Yep.
that we work. That's gonna take all of 10 years to implement, you know?
Probably. Yeah, I don't really see the need for sidewalks here. I think the wider road is perfectly reasonable. I think it gives an area for people to walk safely, because I can't see people driving more than 15 or 20 miles an hour in this area, I would hope.
Alright, well, Chair, what I'm hearing,
we can prove that's not right.
well, this one doesn't have connectability like yours, but alright, so what I'm hearing is one of the planning commission members has provided a rationale that I think would hold up. there's a lot of discussion going on. Do you guys have a sense of what you wanna do here?
I
Because the
have one more
developer's
question
seeking
regarding
action.
the street and the walking path. Are we gonna restrict parking on the side of the road that has the extra 6 feet?
No, that would be part of like the road, but it would be the right of way for walkers. They would park in their driveway or in their garage. And the other associations that we have, people have parked on the side of the road, as you well know. But that's like in the bylaws and stuff, it's not something that, you know, is supposed to be allowed.
So you're not incentivizing parking on the road,
Right.
you're disincentivizing it
Right.
via the bylaws,
Exactly.
okay.
But I guess if we're saying, okay,
I mean, their bylaws are gonna be pretty close to, you know, what
how,
yours
how,
are.
how wide is the road gonna be? And then you
Maybe
say,
30 feet,
so you get 24 feet of travel road then?
correct. And then 6 feet of walking, and it'll be striped all the
Right.
way around.
But people are gonna come in, especially if somebody has a party or something like that, and they're gonna park on both sides of the street. And they're gonna park in this 6-foot walking path.
Well, the walking path would be on the inside. I don't know if they could park around the open space that's in the middle. I mean, I guess I don't have an exact answer for you on that. If someone's gonna have a big party, I don't know how many people, you know, have big parties at the landings or,
We don't.
Yeah, I think the thing coming to mind here with this, that's pointing out is, in planning, we try to plan for the 80%, not the 20%.
Right.
So do I understand that basically we need to
But you
either
can't, the
make a
world's a crazy
recommendation
place.
Yep.
for the planning commission to, or for the planning department to give us some of these options? Or am I hearing that someone's gonna make a motion and we have a leg to stand on to approve the development?
Why are you pointing at me?
I think we should have a motion, George, to either give this an up or down vote.
So we
Can I
have two
ask the
motions,
planner?
right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Does anybody wanna make a motion to give this an up or down?
I'll make a motion.
What's the motion?
Well, I'm assuming the first motion is to approve this as a plan unit development.
Yeah,
That's correct.
yeah, but approve the site plan as a plan unit development, yep.
Move to approve
Plan?
The
I'm
site
looking
plan
for the-
as presented.
the current site plan as a PUD as presented.
Yeah. Do I hear a second?
Yes.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion you wanna add?
I have one question. If we approve this, then what Miles is saying is we're going against our current ordinance.
No,
No?
my thinking has evolved via this conversation.
There's no reason for us to not approve this as a PUD. There's no language that I found that says that this cannot be moved forward as a PUD.
We're gonna, what we'll do in the planning department, subject to approval tonight, is we're gonna write up the justification of what language was used and why this all came. That way, if this ever comes in the future,
Yeah,
we have, you know, a leg to stand on.
yeah,
And we'll probably consult with legal counsel as well to help us write that.
okay.
Could you re-summarize that justification?
The justification is, if you see, at least for me, the phrase that's important to me is right here in 19.08, B4, small a, use restrictions. I feel like that phrase allows us to allows the planning commission to create flexibility as it relates to private drives within the township, subject to their authority as a part of the site plan review process.
Okay, I'm just thinking about when this makes it to the Board of Trustees.
Well, for the board of trustees, you guys care about, that is the justification for the site plan approval. The second
So that's
motion
the
that will
second
take
motion,
place
okay.
is a special use permit, which is
Right.
where the board comes in,
Yeah,
Okay,
different set of standards.
different, right. Okay, let's do a roll call, Miles.
Alright. Commissioner Crainer,
Yes.
Chair Wright,
Yes,
Trustee Hagerman,
yes,
Commissioner Severie,
No,
Commissioner Almaridge,
Yes.
Vice Chair Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Coulter.
Yes.
okay,
Alright, motion carries.
motion carries. Did you have another motion you wanna make, Jason?
Maybe.
And before, I'd just like to point out that I did review our conditions because I was worried that we didn't have a condition that addressed the maintenance aspect
Yeah,
of the
we do
roads.
though.
Our second condition in place was the master deed established by the association, which there is an association that we're dealing with in this case, which take the form of either a homeowners association, it can still take the form of a condominium association within the PUD language, that's fine, the land use just won't be a condo land use. It's a nuance about associated, but anyways, we did amend this to just say the association, to keep it a little bit more broad, cause we didn't know how tonight was gonna go. But that covers the master deed that will be established, will include language that speaks to owner maintenance responsibilities.
Yep,
Okay, sorry to interrupt.
yep. So do you wanna make a motion?
I don't know. So the motion would be for the site plan, approve the site plan and special use permit?
This, the recommendation to conditionally approve the special use permit. If that's what the board is or the planning commission is interested in doing.
I'll make the motion as long as there's discussion.
Okay, well, we can have plenty of discussion. We've already had,
Motion on the floor.
but we need a motion to be able to
No, I understand that, I just,
discuss the motion.
like, I did a lot of preparation for the first part, well, I move to approve the site plan and special use permits, with the conditions presented.
Okay?
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, now you wanna have some discussion, Jason?
Well, do we?
we-
I mean,
do we
are there
wanna have
outstanding issues?
No, okay.
Ray?
No, I don't wanna put you on the spot. Do we wanna
Well, if
have
we
any
approve the
discussion?
site plan, what do we really approve? Question, I guess.
Well, you've approved the site plan as is presented tonight, now with the special use permit, because of the land use's nature of being permitted by special use. The planning commission and via the board's authority, you guys have wide latitude to recommend conditions with that special use permit. Those
Right.
conditions can impact the site plan, they can also impact the land use itself.
Well, we approved it with the proposed site conditions of approval you listed, right?
You approved the site plan as it was presented, and then the motion on the floor right now is to approve the special use permit with the conditions that are currently listed here on the staff report. Now, there's some discussion going on.
Right.
Okay,
So there could be more.
So you could add conditions, you could delete
Amend those
conditions.
conditions.
yeah. Well, I think all the conditions are listed, and, you know, I think the one thing, there's a lot of comments from the engineers and the county on the drainage issues or lack of information on drainage. So I mean, your comments in there.
Yep.
That they need to, submit full drainage design calculations. Not exactly sure what you mean by calculations, but drainage plan, I
The
guess.
drain commissioner knows, yeah, the
Yeah.
drain, that's what the drain commissioner wants.
Right, with, you know, infiltration, and then the biggest issue I saw was that there was no overflow in the plans. And that's pointed out in the comments above, but not in
And that's
the
because-
proposed conditions.
And that's because, and obviously, again, just like one of our standard conditions, as a part of the site plan, not the site plan review as a part of the construction plan review process, we always had the drain commissioner stamp off those plans before we create anything. The drain commissioner believes that this site has adequate drainage, that it doesn't, not all sites need, it's uncommon in Michigan because of the
Yeah, it is.
topography. You're
Glacial
used to seeing
geology.
plans with retention somewhere on site.
Right.
Just so happens that this site likely has a soil, layer topography that doesn't necessitate that, but the drain commission would like to see calcs to prove that, and that's why they're asking. for those.
Here's my issue with that, and I agree, for maybe 5 or 10 years, it would operate perfectly. But with time, you get silt clogging up the pores,
Yep.
and eventually, you get no infiltration or very low infiltration. Maybe you get garbage in there or whatever, you
Yep.
know.
Have to be
Plants,
maintained.
yeah. eventually it stops working or works very slow, so when you have a big rainfall or some, big, rain event, it's gonna overflow and you're gonna have flooding.
Yeah, and I guess
So I
that's,
think
what-
you have to have some type of safe net there.
I guess that's what we rely on the drain
Yeah.
commission for. But obviously you have special expertise in this area, so I won't wanna go up against you on that.
Yeah, again, it may work perfectly for quite some time, but eventually there's gonna be a problem.
I agree with you, and then that's why maintenance is so
Yes.
important. Right, and
Yeah.
I think we have discussed that with John Morrison a number of times.
Yeah, I mean, if this is established, or, you know, the condition is that the drain commission, again, would have to review and approve what's established. If they review it and determine that it's not sufficient, then the drain commission has authority under this special use condition to require those elements be established.
Yeah, and, you know, they didn't show any borings, not that they necessarily have to, but, you know, you may have really good sand for 5 or 10 feet, and then it may be, you know, glacial
Well,
till.
That whole area is all sand out there.
Well, and that's what the
We've
drain
been
commission will
digging and
determine.
Pushing and it's.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, but how deep is what I'm saying, eventually,
Yeah.
you know,
Oh, yeah.
eventually it's gonna hit something.
I guess all I'm pointing
Then
out
it
is like,
moves
it's not like
laterally.
we're like taking the developer's word on it, we're gonna have an agency that's responsible for this, look into it. If it's not adequate, then they'll have to make amendments to their plan, and then those will be considered minor amendments. If the amendments grow too vast where they trip to the form of like establishing a retention, or a small retention area or multiple small retention areas, it would be a minor amendment to the site plan, and we would just require the developer to set new plans. Minor amendments are approved administratively, we take those plans in, it's required by an agency, that happens all the time in the development process. Now, if something is catastrophically wrong and the drain commissioner was way off on their assessment and that gets proved through, soil samples and calcs, we'll have to amend and then it will come back for a site plan amendment in front of you guys.
So the,
Then-
oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, the other issue that I noticed, there were a lot of, comments related to the sewer elevations. So,
And our agency, again,
yeah, I'm sure they'll be addressed, but, yeah, just pointing it out.
So if
Well-
10 years down the road, there does become a drainage flooding issue, then it's on the HOA to manage dealing with that? Is that correct?
the HOA would be on the hook to alleviate the drainage issue. They obviously can't cause negative or undue burden onto the surrounding properties, yep. That's why it's so important, that's why the developer, just like with East Lansing Storage, should in theory have a self-interest in getting this right the first time, because
Yep.
they only suffer by doing it wrong.
And if the homeowner association can be responsible for the drainage issues, which I think they would have to be here, gotta make sure that that's in the master deed. And discuss very clearly that the storm drain is gonna be a common element for everybody there. They're gonna have a
Well, there-
responsibility to maintain that thing.
I would think it would be reasonable that there be language in the agreement that the homeowner association is responsible for maintaining the, whatever you wanna call it, retention
Infiltration
pond or
pond, yeah.
green space or,
Well, there's a detention in the very center of
Right.
it, and then also in the back where
yes,
the open area is.
yeah. But
So are you asking that that be put in as one of the?
I think
It's,
that's-
it's already one of our
I think it's
conditions, and
already
we're
one of
gonna
the
have, the
conditions.
condition states that we'll have our legal counsel actually review the master deed to ensure it's meeting the standards that we'd like to
I don't feel like the
see.
soccer field drains that well. Like, isn't that sort of a perennial issue?
I have no idea, I haven't been out to
No.
the soccer
I'm
field.
aware, but
Well, I know that when we were, talking previously, and I'm not sure this is what what Dad had said is, they had asked with us if we would put in, a lead that goes back to the soccer field, and we had agreed that, yeah, if this project, went through, obviously, that's something that we would do, so that would also help the soccer field as well.
yeah.
Looks like the soccer field has a little bit of a different soil makeup just in that one area too. These maps are not very reliable, with that note.
So that large area in the middle is gonna be just one large common element then, right?
Well, what we have discussed and talked about doing is donating, I don't know if you, Miles can pull it up, the back side of it, where the open space is gonna be.
Yeah, up here,
I have it on here, but it's not gonna,
up
I
here.
think it's page, yeah.
Yeah,
So
Miles has
that-
got it.
That whole open space part, we've talked of donating, oops,
I'm trying to get it zoomed in so everyone can see. Sorry, go ahead.
there's talked of donating that whole open space area, that you guys could put parks if you wanted to, or, you know, do something with that as well. So that's been discussion that we've had also.
Slide that up, Miles, to show the part in between the homes, I mean, in the center. That big area right there, what,
This right here also,
who is going to own that?
Common element,
the
correct.
common element, yeah.
Okay, that's what my question, that's what I'm coming up.
We'll make sure that's all described in the master deed.
And that's why the drainage, up the county, they wanted, ditches on each side, because that will also, you know, help there as well. And that'll, you know, run through to the center there.
All right,
According to the engineer's comments, there still needs to be some work done on the elevation for sewer, water and stuff, to make sure there's no conflicts. And they had a comment in it too about locations, east, west, north, and south, I don't know what standards they're talking about, but I don't know if that's a
Well-
big issue or not.
I remember, if this is a little bit of history, but remember the original plan was to install a lift station. And then it was moved to a gravity system, which we also was far superior. And at least in my verbal communications with Jonathan Archer with SCUMA, he thinks that it will be at the high end of what they like to see in their standards, but they think it's doable. But they just need to see it in plans. Obviously, a developer doesn't wanna pay $15,000-$20,000 for engineering plans if they're not at that point in the process.
Yeah.
It's already been redone once, so,
Yeah,
yeah.
Well, the question too is, I think the comment was made by the engineer that maybe some of these homes will not have a basement, just a
I
slab.
don't think any of them are gonna have a basement, are they, Candy?
I can't answer that question, I'm sorry, I don't know that.
I believe that's right. Some of them were gonna have a basement, from what I recall. Were not.
Oh, we're not. I would
Needed to
think
be on
if
slab
the sewer's
for
only
the,
4 feet deep, you-
for the grade reason.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That I don't.
So the only way they could is if they put their own individual grinder.
They would have to do a pump inside the basement itself,
Right.
which homeowners could opt into.
Yeah.
From the zoning perspective, it doesn't change the footprint of the structure, which is what we care about.
Right. Right.
Do you have a set of plans out here somewhere? No, besides what's in our packet?
Nope, this is what we have in terms of plans. We have some, in previous packets, elevations have been provided of what the
Yeah.
homes would look like if you guys remember those.
Yeah.
I was looking for light and all that.
Lighting, yeah, we have a condition that speaks to lighting.
I see the proposed.
Yep.
And that's typical, just like with HDI, we don't exactly know how lighting's gonna take place until we get into that point with PUDs. It's different than like the gas station, for example, where they know exactly where every light's gonna be.
And then-
Because a lot of that depends on what consumers' energy will allow.
And they make the landscaping.
Yep, we have a condition about,
Yeah.
this developer is responsible for ensuring all, standards of the landscape ordinance are met.
We don't have a requirement yet for street trees, do we, or do we?
You guys have some language about street trees within your ordinance? You do, and they have, I think they have a landscaping sheet where they show. Maybe it's not attached. Yeah, they show some of their, landscaping elements on this page, but admittedly, it's not much. Cammy, can you speak to the landscaping that you guys intend to have on these sites, or is that something that you're gonna require for the
Are you
homeowner?
speaking, yeah, the homeowner would, the builder would come in and they would do landscaping on the outside of the house, just like we do, we use instant shade, and they come in and they put in plantings and, you know, mulched areas and that kind of thing. As far as trees and stuff, I mean, we, have access to trees and we have access to spades and that kind of thing, so I don't foresee that being any kind of a problem.
The intention is to have trees.
Pardon me?
The intention is for these homeowners to establish trees and landscaping.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's typical through the PUD process. I know like a lot of, and we'll see what the language here, master deed, I know a lot of like, HOAs, sometimes they'll say, you know, when you move into the HOA, you're required to establish one tree per whatever.
Yeah,
Is that how it works? And you're shaking your head, Mark? Yeah, that's how it works in a lot of HOAs. They put it on all, but that way, it's for two reasons. One, it's because they want the HOA to all look nice, and two, they want the homeowner to have some flexibility.
I think I misunderstood your question. When the home is built, just like in the cottages or any other place, the landscaping will be done at that time, and the homeowner will work with the builder and the landscaper to provide, you know, what they want along with what we want, you know, what we consider requirable and looking nice, yes.
I guess my point is, I think street trees should be required. We don't have that in our ordinance yet, that's something I wanna work on.
Okay.
Street trees should be a requirement of the township, not left to the homeowners. The street tree requirement should be there, and it should also be a requirement in our ordinance to say those trees have to be maintained. If one dies, it's gotta be replaced.
Let's put a side note on that.
The only problem I have with that really is, the maintenance issue of it, of course, is on the property owner.
Yeah,
It wouldn't
it's gonna
necessarily be on the property.
owned.
It shouldn't,
No.
it should be in the street right away.
Okay, but then you have maintenance, but then also if there's sewer there, that's another issue, right?
If the
Correct.
sewer's back there, it shouldn't be there, but that's okay. Sewer should be on the road.
the lead won't be
Yeah.
though.
What's
The
that?
leads that go
Lead
from the
will be-
home.
Yeah, somebody's gonna remove the lead, that's true.
Yeah,
The sewer lead from the
Oh, the sewer
home.
lead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
lead from the sewer to the hookup.
Well, just-
So that's been problematic in the past, I know, there's different.
That can be a problem, but
Alright, I feel like we're in the
Sorry,
weeds.
yeah.
We're in the
yeah,
weeds.
we're in the weeds here, I
Thank you.
think. Yeah,
We got a lot on the agenda tonight.
yeah,
Good
okay.
us.
Somebody wanna make a motion?
The motion's been made,
It's
it's
been
been
made.
seconded.
That's right, okay. All right, I think we've discussed this long enough. Let's call a vote, Miles.
Alright, you want a roll call vote?
Yep, absolutely.
Commissioner Crainer,
Yes.
Chair Wright,
Yes,
Trustee Hagerman,
Yes,
Commissioner Severie,
no,
Commissioner Almarigi,
Yes.
Vice Chair Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Coulter.
Yes.
It carries.
motion carries. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Cammy.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Yep. Okay, let's move on, Miles.
Alright, see you, Kimmy. Alright, CIP introduction, alright, this is
Yeah,
dumb, but
but
this
it has
was a
to be
little,
done,
this
Miles.
was frustrating for me. There was a miscommunication between, the planning department and administration, and for whatever reason, we are back here and we had to amend our timeline. All we did was, there were some noticing requirements that have to be done as a part of this process that didn't get done. Frustratingly, I'll say again. And so we have scrunched our timeline, to not offset when we're gonna get it in front of the board, but just the amount of time that the departments and applicants have. So we made some edits. I had to bring this back and
Yep,
re-kick off the process. I'm very sorry and apologize.
yep.
Move to accept the timeline as amended?
Thank you.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
aye,
Anyone opposed? Okay, let's move on.
Our apologies. That's how I feel about it too, thank you. Alright, so, without further ado, we have some gentlemen here tonight. They put in an application to do a site plan introduction review with the planning commission. These gentlemen represent the development in Bath Township that's known as Noco Lofts. They're presenting a development, Chandler North. I have informed these gentlemen, as I'm sure most on the planning commission are aware, and for those in the public that may not be, that, the township is currently in the midst of planning a large engineering project on Chandler Road to, expand the road itself. The road commission's, in charge of doing that, not more lanes, just wider and kind of straighten it out. There's a crook in, or a crook, or whatever you wanna call it, a bend in the road, on Chandler that's been problematic for traffic that they're seeking to kind of straighten out. There is an open ditch that's problematic in term, it is the Remy Chandler Intercounty Drain that's been problematic from a safety perspective. We've got a lot of fiber and, telecom and power and a bunch of other utilities that are in there that we'd like to reorganize. In the process of doing that, the township is taking on the large project of redoing our sewer, within that area, which is currently restricted in terms of its capacity and probably overburdened in terms of the amount of lift stations in the small area. That project is in the engineer planning phase right now. There's a lot of budget, discussions going on between the entities of the township, the road commission, and the state of Michigan actually right now, so. We're working through that. We are seeking to kick this engineering project off in 2026 and hopefully have a lot of this online by 2027. So this development is early in terms of coming before the planning commission, since the RUs to support this land use won't be here till 2027. However, I'm always a fan of good long-term planning, and it sounds like these gentlemen are too, so they wanted to bring it in front of you guys tonight and get your initial feedback, so they are able to plan appropriately. This is in the D development district. There is a D development overlay in this district, which allows for the, at least, the idea behind that overlay is to incentivize kind of these mixed use, more, dynamic land uses. What they're actually seeking here is, it's a little bit hard maybe to tell at first glance, but you'll notice a L-shaped structure that would be multifamily residential. They are seeking 60 dwelling units there. There is a clubhouse structure. Yeah, I'm looking to you guys, that's correct? Is that, am I
It's on the big open space to the right.
interpreting that correct? This one? And then these two different structures here, which are that commercial retail, the developers are in the state, they're they have some gentlemen here with them tonight that are more local, that we deal with on a more day-to-day basis, and then they have their team that are from out of state, here tonight as well. Yeah, just wanted to, it sounds like, get you guys' initial thoughts and feedbacks. They have had a pre-application meeting with staff where we discuss elements like garbage, parking, fire, lanes, fire access, you know, all the usual things we talk about in a pre-application meeting, landscape, you know, land use restrictions, setbacks. So yeah, that's where we're at.
Chandler Road is the bottom of this picture, right?
Yep, right here, this is Chandler, and this is Huntsaker coming around. This is a parcel here, so this whole thing, just, see if I can rotate it.
My first initial reaction when I saw that, it looks like maybe proposing a new driveway onto Chandler Road. A drive access. Be nice if we could not do that,
I think the road commission would second that.
Yeah,
and have the access come off,
Hunsaker.
Hunsaker Road, yeah. Limit the access to Chandler.
Well, I think we also need to be aware of just the fact that we're improving the sewer capacity in this location doesn't mean that we've got sewer capacity to get it over to the plant either. So that might be a secondary issue that's gonna have to be addressed at some point, depending on how many units we're talking here. Because there is limited capacity in that pipeline going over to the plant. Anybody got any comments about the development that would be pertinent?
One thing, right now, which we asked you to provide, which you did, was a place for the residents to walk their dogs. Now with this, that's gonna go away.
No, it would be,
Or moved.
that large triangle.
Do you want to step up to the podium, please? Otherwise, we can't pick up very well.
Hi, to answer your question, the large open space that we pointed to where the, little small clubhouse would be in this upper left-hand corner would also have a dog area as well. So it's part of that. The clubhouse is not very large, it's probably about 12 to 1,500 square feet, and a little bit of outside space, but the rest of it is, you know, part of the.
That's a long ways from the residents who live in the south portion that's already built.
That's true.
So, I mean, if I'm gonna walk my dog and I live closer to Jimmy's bar,
Right.
where do I walk my dog?
How often do you see people walking their dog in that little spot?
I have seen, I drive by that, they've been using it.
Yeah, I have seen it too. You
And
haven't seen
it's
it?
not to say that we can't, you know, move some of that around. The other thing is there's a drainage basin that's been here for quite a while.
Yeah.
That has green space that can also be, you know, accommodated.
Yep. Yeah. I think the key thing, when you do that, which that's a good idea, is to just stick a post up that says,
Come
dog
this
bags
way.
available, and here's the trash can right here.
Exactly.
Then people use it.
Yep.
Maybe.
Maybe.
No, they will.
The one thing that was mentioned on Chandler Road, there's currently, just a center traffic cut that is, dead center of the long parcel. And the two commercial properties that we're looking at bringing up to the front, which would be retail, we're looking for additional access, that one and the one to the north. So they were looking for maybe a right-in, right-out way to access the property for their tenants not to have to drive all the way through either side to get to this parcel. Because it's kind of mid-span. So if that was a consideration, because if you go back out to the picture of the whole site itself, you're quite a ways down from here to the corner to be able to enter the site from a commercial aspect.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're not at the point in the process where we've got like the feedback from the road commission, but I would imagine the road commission would probably agree with Commissioner Severie, like avoid that if possible, but I see where, you know, your point of
Yeah.
view.
Right.
Well, it might be practical to relocate a couple of those facilities that you want for commercial and move buildings over in that area instead.
Yeah, it's possible that they could pull closer to
I-
the multifamily.
I assume that the businesses located there would be primarily serving the residents in the area,
Yes.
yeah. 'Cause
Yeah, one is considered as like a very small market, and then the other one was a commercial store that have shown serious interest. And that's why the process was begun to entice those guys to come in and make acquisitions of the property and
Right,
others,
'cause-
their commercial space.
Because the stores that you had in the back there weren't profitable enough before to afford the rents that you wanted. so-
Right, they were too far behind the Chandler Road.
Any other initial thoughts, I mean, concerns?
Were you here back in 2016 presenting to us, I think that initial development before Nokolof's? One that's all storage facilities right now. Self-storage, that, yes.
Before that, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Remember,
It was quite a while ago.
Westpac
Yes.
from Hawaii, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, one of the challenges that I have since, I've been here since then, that time, is that there was a bunch of promises in terms of there's gonna be a gas station, fancy restaurants and stuff like that, and markets changed, and now we have a self-storage facility, which we're gonna discuss later on in the meeting, right? And so, and then we've had challenges with landscaping in the past and maintenance of landscaping and some enforcement issues. And so, I guess I'm a bit wary, based on past promises and past actions, with this. And so, you know, I'll be taking a closer look at this development to make sure that this is a good fit. And so, one of the things that, you know, I'm worried about is, I mean, especially, I'm assuming that this is gonna be somewhat geared towards student housing, is that's somewhat.
No, that's not correct.
That's not correct, okay. You know, is this gonna be a development that's not sustainable as housing and will convert to more profitable, you know, short-term storage in the future?
This is actually the 60-unit apartment complex is actually, for workforce housing and affordable. So it's an 80% median income proposal from a LIHTC perspective, and that's what the 60 units is. It's actually proposed, there's a third-party developer interested in acquiring the asset, similar to the two commercial properties. So it's basically just to provide an avenue to complete out the property in a normal fashion and create the opportunity to complete it and create income, property taxes and completion of the development. So that's the main focus, and what we're trying to do is go along with the concurrent planning with the sewer so that it's all consistent. And the potential users are interested in moving forward along that same time frame to develop their plans for those specific commercial uses and the affordable 80% of median income proposals for just exactly that, attainable rental.
Thank you.
So those are the uses.
But when I see this layout here, the parking layout, you have several islands in there, which I think is good. Just stick a tree in each one of those islands.
Absolutely,
That
lots
would
of
be-
trees.
Yeah.
Why is there so much parking? Is that just what meets the requirements? Does seem like there's a lot, that whole area seems like it has an abundance of parking.
There was a tremendous amount of parking originally when the, what's now the storage facility was a strip center.
Right.
So there's a lot of leftover parking from that layout. And the other portions are all to code.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that will be a part of when we're just not there yet, when we do our zoning review, which that's gonna be, you know, again, our new thing we'll be doing as we bring on these new ones. Just like you guys get an agency review, we'll build in a zoning review and we'll talk about, hey, this is how much parking they have, this is how much coverage they have.
Anybody got anything else? No. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Okay, Miles, let's move on to
We'll
the
follow up. Thank you, guys.
rezoning request.
Yeah. Alright, let me flip this back around here. See you guys, thanks for coming. Alright. Alright, rezoning request. So this is actually my first rezoning request, since I've been here at Bath Township. So the interns helped me out with doing some research about how Bath Township has handled these in the past. It turns out you guys did a rezoning just before my time here, in the same area, which was kinda like, you know, funny, I guess. And interesting from just a planning perspective, if you're a planning nerd. And so, when you learn about rezoning in planning school, there's basically two boxes that you wanna check. One, are we engaged in spot zoning? So that's kinda like box number one, which in this scenario, the parcels we're looking at are here and here. Be easier to see on a zoning map, but you can see some of these parcels adjacent were rezoned. Oh, I picked a bad one. Yeah. Some of these parcels that this touches were rezoned to medium density residential, so there is congruency in terms of the district itself. It touches this area, which is all medium. So at the time, it was not spot zoning, and it continues not to be spot zoning. So that's kind of like box number one. Box number two is this a approved land use, is this approved to be rezoned based upon the future land use map, which I have some future land use maps here. Probably should have included that in the packet, so my apologies. You'll notice that the parcels we're talking about on the future land use map, are zoned, or at least are intended to be zoned here in that medium density. So, box number two, that planners would look at is checked. So it's not spot zoning and it meets what is stated in the approved future land use map. So, from the planning department's perspective, that allowed us to recommend a, we feel good about this one. There is still, a noticing process that we wanna go through, and we're not seeking a vote tonight, but that's just the introduction of where we're at with this one. It's a, in my mind, I mean, a pretty straightforward one. Yeah, there's some public here tonight. We did, send out mailings that this would be a public hearing tonight. We did have this is another one of those noticing things. We did have a snafu with the Lansing State Journal where the email was sent to them, but we never, for whatever reason, they didn't get confirmation back. And so I wanna, when we go to have this at the second meeting, I wanna re-notice it with the newspaper just to make sure we're good with the newspaper and there's no zone, we don't, 10 years from now, have somebody come back and say that wasn't noticed correctly. So another reason to not take action tonight, and we'll just rezone it again, and we'll, if that's on the.
Renotice it?
Yeah, and we'll work with the paper, since I believe it was their error, to, get the charge waived.
Okay, so what would you like to have us do, Miles?
I would still prefer, since letters were sent out, and we do have residents here tonight, to open up the public hearing, and,
Alright.
I think it'd be good just to, at minimum, just get input tonight.
So we might need 2 public hearings then, or is what?
Yeah,
what you're saying?
I think if that's not, overburdensome to this body, that would shore up our liability, and I would just feel better about it.
I don't have any problem with that.
Okay.
So let's have a motion to open.
I make a motion, we open the meeting for the rezoning request.
Support.
Okay, those in favor say aye.
Aye?
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, okay, the public meeting is open, so anybody wants to make any comments about the rezoning, step up to the podium, please. Identify yourself for the record. No comments?
Good evening. First of all, let me congratulate all you and commend you for volunteering your time unpaidly on behalf of your community. Again, not many people appreciate the work you put in, so you're to be commended. My name is Paul Ross. I am the president of the Landings of Hawk Hollow Condominium Association. We are north of this project. You see up the top, Club Course Drive. We have 62 homes in that area. The homeowners of the association opposed the earlier mentioned Darrell Connolly rezoning of the same manner. I've not had the opportunity to consult with our board or talk with our neighbors. I can only tell you on speculation that they would oppose this too, just because of the increased volume of residency as opposed to a single unit. This has the capacity to be a duplex or maybe even greater capacity. That's my thoughts. So, appreciate your time.
Thank you. Anyone else got anything they would like to say?
Flip a coin.
We drew straws on the way over.
Kurt Dwyer, we lived on the road, we're neighbors. I don't know that I have a lot of comment, I've had more questions just about what this means for us. I know our property is this one right here. One of the reasons we bought that property is because it is surrounded by woods and trees. We look out our back porch, and it's surrounded by that. We hate for that to change, we don't have any control over that. We're good neighbors, and we're not trying to we're not trying to oppose anything, we just are curious about what this might mean in the future for that property as it relates to our property. So. Renee? Okay, that's my comment.
Okay, thank you.
Miles, isn't the Kessler development that we just discussed near this location?
It's medium density, it's in that district, but it's quite a ways.
It is
Yeah.
quite a ways.
It's actually divided by our 425 with East Lansing even.
Thank you.
Where is the gentleman, they were just here on Sacred and Chandler? Where are they with respect to this?
Down here.
Farther south.
Next to Noka Loft.
Liquor stores.
Okay.
By, north of Jimmy's Pub. Good evening.
My name is Chris Weir, my wife Kimberly's here. We are the property owners of said two properties and adjacent, we actually live in this parcel here, our house. So the main reason we want to rezone this is to unlock future value. We don't have any plans to develop this into anything with medium density, high density in it right now. So we know that the Connolly project just was rezoned, so given that, we wanted to ride along with that and get our property rezoned the same, mostly to unlock future value. If there's any questions anybody has, I'm happy to answer them.
So going to the prior public comment about what does this practically mean, right? So,
Yeah.
so there's a use by right, so there's different uses for rural districts than for medium density.
Yeah. So rural uses by right are largely ag-based,
Yeah.
and then uses by right for medium are largely single-family duplex-based. I mean, churches, those are in most zoning districts, family, daycare homes, so that would be, I think that's cut off for how the state defines that as 6 children and under.
So we're not talking about like jails and
No.
commercial developments.
No,
No, that,
So things like restaurants and whatnot.
even restaurants and that, no,
The duplex, I think, is the highest density we could ever put there.
by right, yeah,
You could put a duplex in?
by right, yeah.
Oh, two-family dwellings, okay.
And anything that would go there would most likely need a private road, I imagine?
No, they could be, unless they go to try to divide this, then, you know, they would have to live within the frontage they have. This is a very odd shaped parcel, you couldn't, really, in most places in Michigan, you know, without maybe a little bit in the upper peninsula, well, a lot in the upper peninsula, but in most places in Michigan, you can't even build a parcel like this anymore.
If they were to access it off Chandler Road, how wide would the road have to be?
Access it off of Chandler Road. They could build a drive off Chandler now, as long as they could get the road commission to give them the driveway permit.
There's another private easement road to the north too.
Yeah, what, this one are you talking about?
The no name?
Yeah, it's a private road there. So they could gain some frontage from that. I think it'd be pretty hard in this current formation for Beth to approve any kind of split. You would have to redo some of this.
Also, who's the parcel just north, the large parcel to the north?
Yeah, that's a good question.
That's all swampland, it's not buildable.
Yeah, but it's T&D development.
yeah, I don't think you can build there.
Probably originally acquired as a part of the Hawk Hollow development and used it to send a lot of their water to.
So that could come through as PUD also, right?
It could. Again, harder to establish one here. Harder to go with the justification, one of the justifications of approval too, which is conformity, right? It's hard to conform when you're in this shape. At this point, I guess I would just take the applicant for their word that they're trying to get highest and best use out of the vacant land they own.
So not spot zoning and
Not spot
consistent
zoning,
with the future land
consistent
map.
with the future land map.
And
Those are
adjacent parcels.
the factors that we have to review in the planning commission, or planning department, keep doing that.
I could see the smaller parcel as medium density, but it seems like that larger parcel, what would be the access to that, Miles? Is there really?
The
any-
access, right now, they have access on Chandler, and then they have their private drive access, which these homes use as well.
And their home,
Right.
which they could,
Yeah, it'd be hard to get access through their residence.
Yeah, it'd be pretty difficult.
Those existing homes must still be zoned rural then, right?
These ones down here are, I don't think all of these are.
No, some of
I
that's
think some of
medium.
these got rezoned.
Yeah, ours is on
Yeah, this one is that we mentioned earlier.
Yeah, the contiguous ones that are zoned medium density are also north of our property.
Okay.
Condos,
Yeah.
and then all the Hawk Hollow.
So all these south of them look like they're still zone rural.
I mean, essentially, we're giving Bath Township the comprehensive plan and the future land use map. We're giving them exactly what they're asking for,
It's very
to a
generous.
T.
You're not asking action today.
No, we prefer no action. We wanna shore up our noticing liability.
I have no other questions.
Me neither.
Alright, you wanna close the public
Yeah,
hearing?
yeah, I'll close the public hearing then. Thank you for
Thank you.
coming.
Chair closes the public hearing. Alright, next item then.
Yep.
Alright, zoning,
ZBA, thank you for coming.
ZBA, fees.
Yep.
Alright, so like with everything going on in the township right now, the township just is, you know, everyone, every department, the board of trustees, we're looking at what things cost and how much we charge for them and what we pay. The planning department has put together a memo here to just broadly give a sense of what our cost is to administrate a zoning board of appeals meeting. We found, and you know, you could work these numbers a little bit, but we try to be fairly conservative with our estimates and pretty fair with our estimates. I'll say the two line item costs that have caused the number, which we believe our minimum cost to be $449. The two costs that are driving that up the quickest was one that I just mentioned, which is noticing or typical, when I first got here in 2021, when I would send a notice, which typically they're about a paragraph, 5 to 6 sentences long, to the Lansing State Journal, it would cost me $98, cost township $98.
Right.
Now when I send a notice of the same length to the Lansing State Journal, it costs me $185. So our noticing costs are going up, like, I would say at a pretty rapid rate. There are reasons that the newspaper in our area and newspapers around the state are doing that. They're suffering from ad revenue losses, and this is something they know we're statutory required to do, so they kinda got us. So that's line item cost number one. Line item cost number two is the ZBA members themselves, will be probably the second highest line item cost. I think for the ZBA, it's $25 per ZBA member and then $30 a meeting for the chair. There's 5 members and there's 1 chair. So, you know, total there, that's, $110 right there. So just between the noticing and the members showing up themselves to come to the meeting, you know, we're at above what our minimum costs right now, or what our minimum fee is, which is a single family home, which is probably in my time at least, the one that we see the most is single family residents looking for variance. In my time, I've also seen signs, which we charge significant, signs are $300, but neither of those are getting close to our minimum cost of $449. Now, with all that being said, we put in our memo that while we think it is important to try to make up the township's costs, and we don't necessarily love the idea of the general property taxpayer subsidizing the ZBA meeting of like some person's shed and where the said shed is located, we also realize that we don't wanna create a barrier to entry where the citizens of Bath Township feel like they're not able to build a deck or a shed because the costs are just too high. If you're building a deck and the stairs are at a weird angle and cause you to, you know, encroach on a setback and you need to seek a variance, I think, you know, our current zoning permit fee is $50. So they, you know, they'll submit the deck, and this is stuff me and Bobby deal with on a day, we look at decks a lot this time of year. And, we say, okay, like, you know, your steps, we need them to go this way. And they're like, oh, we can't do that because of all these reasons. And they're like, all right, well, you know, I wanna get a variance. And we say, okay, that's great, that'll be $500. For example, they will be like, are you kidding me? So, so I don't know what the right answer is, I guess, on this one. And I'm not trying, I guess this is just a point of, I'm trying to start a conversation. I know what our minimum costs are, I know what we're charging, and I know the disconnect between those two. I don't know what the outcome of all that information should be. That's where I'm kinda looking to this body to get your thoughts. So,
The noticing cost is almost $200.
almost $200, yes.
No, for somebody that wants to have a variance for a deck,
Yes.
can there be a different noticing cost for something based on the size of the problem or whatever?
No.
It seems strange to me that for a public hearing like we just had, it's $200.
Yep.
But for somebody who wants to change the deck, it's $200. That doesn't seem,
Yeah, and we've really, and I even talked to the clerk about this, Brenda, we have tried to cut back our word count to get that cost, like, we're trying to use minimal words here. And we feel like we're at a point where, like I said, when I first got here, we were probably at like 5-6 sentences, and we're probably down to like 3 sentences. But we're at a point where you just do have to say like where, when, and what, and it takes so many words to say that, you know?
is it a state requirement you have to?
It is a state requirement,
For these kind of things?
state
'Cause
law.
it seems to me like, I know there's some kind of 300-foot zone or something like that, you gotta mail those people some kind of notice.
Yep,
But for something,
and that's a smaller cost for us, the mailings are,
yeah.
they only move the needle, you know? It's the noticing costs, and, you know, you can't really, you wanna pay the ZBA members, you don't wanna
Oh, yeah.
dial that down, cause they are giving their time, I mean, that might not even cover their gas, $20, cause those meetings are significantly shorter than these meetings.
How much do we get paid?
I wanna say you guys get paid the same, I wanna say it's 25 a meeting, so the ZBA in that respect is kinda where it's at, you guys are messing up, but.
So ZBA's getting overpaid, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, well, yeah, you can make a
But they
case.
only meet once a year.
If you guys would like me to advocate for you
I'm gonna
guys,
get
I
rich
can
off
do that.
So you're suggesting we go from 100 to 150, is that what the request is?
Well, in my time here, when I first got here, you guys were at 100, and now we're at 150. But what I'm saying is, our costs, we're at 150, but our costs are 449. What do you guys think we should do, is what I'm asking.
Move it to 449.
Okay, and you don't have any qualms about, because I mean, we had that initial thought too, which is like, we should be covering our minimum costs, but you don't have any hesitation that
I mean, 4/5 of the ZBA applicants get rejected, right?
Yeah, it's supposed to be.
And so it's always like, we want the special accommodation, and ZBA has their list of 5 criteria, they're like,
Right.
nope, 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 nope,
You
sorry.
don't hit and you hand that out when you're talking to them, so if you don't meet these, your chances are very, very slim.
Yeah,
So while the 449 appears punitive, right, there is some utility there in terms of people are gonna have skin in the game.
they're gonna have to
with
really
500
want
bucks,
it,
right?
yeah.
And so, and if they're getting counseled in terms of, look, you're not likely to get past the ZBA, it saves everyone time, right?
Yeah.
Because they're like, well, shit, I don't wanna, lose out on $500 to get said no, whereas $150,
I'll take
that's
a
a
shot.
that's a pretty good, decent gamble.
Well,
For
we-
most homeowners. I'm not saying that there aren't homeowners throughout our community that is a prohibitive amount, I mean, of course it is.
Right.
Yeah, I guess that's just what, and we have had, to your point, I mean, not the last one, Mark, but the one before that, where the gentleman, I think I think it was in Europe at that time, and so they helped me out, but, the gentleman wanted his shed
Yeah.
where he wanted it, and his rationale was like, well, that's where I want it. And his rationale was like, when we were like, all right, man, well, you can't put it there, and then he's like, well, is there, like, can I appeal? And we're like, yeah, you can, of course, like, you know, and then it gets very legal for me, like, I cannot dissuade an applicant from going. I'm like, yes, of course, like, it's your right as a citizen to go for a variance. Like, how much is a variance? 150, I'll go for it, what's the worst that could happen?
Right.
And then the township is, you know, suffering because of that individual's decision, a loss of $350. So, I mean, it happens. It doesn't happen often, but it has happened in my time here.
What do you mean the loss of $350?
So every time we hold one of those meetings, we're currently losing money as a municipality.
Just want to get clear.
I agree with Jason, we ought to just jack it up. Make it a nice round even 450.
450.
I was thinking 500, nice round number.
What about just doing appeals, increasing that price?
What do you mean?
So if you appeal, make it $600 or something like that.
Well, I mean, if they are going to the zoning board of appeals, they're appealing. Like we, on
No,
the,
I mean, if they appeal a decision, like bring it again,
oh, they've never done that. If you wanna appeal, yeah, if you wanna appeal a ZBA decision, you have to go to
You
circuit
have to go to
court.
circuit court, wouldn't you? Yeah, I
Isn't that
think
part of
so.
the judicial function of the
Yeah,
ZBA?
and the circuit court obviously is not charging 150, like they're
No.
charging, they're charging a real amount,
Yeah.
so. So, yeah. Alright, so it sounds like I'm hearing there is an appetite to raise the fee, which I guess is what we are curious about.
Is there any other route for applicants to
Notification, you mean?
get change? I mean, I noticed that, for example, the Kessler development, that was their other route, was to go through the ZBA. And
They wouldn't have been approved.
but the result of our meeting negated that.
Yeah,
So they had.
Through
they
the
had
PUD
a different
language.
route
yeah,
to
and
get to the result that.
and with that whole 80-20 thing, I mean, the Kesslers are definitely in that 20 percentile. I mean,
Yeah.
this situation is like one of the weirder situations I've ever dealt with. So I wouldn't wanna base any like ZBA decision around like how that whole development progressed.
But there is really no other route.
No.
Other than
Ex-
requesting that the ordinance be changed or reviewed, which would apply to everybody, not just that
Yeah,
specific
especially
case.
with like some guy's deck, you know, like it's different than like the commercial review process where there is more oversight and flexibility. And it's like, you don't wanna necessarily, like, so for decks, for example, one thing, because so many decks were going to the ZBA at one point in time, I think you guys, before my time, ended up, working with the planning commission to allow a 15% encroachment. It's a call out in our special provisions, Article 15 for decks.
That's correct.
And there's other things like that, there's, provisions for fences, and these mainline issues that the ZBA has dealt with. So like that, basically what you're asking has been done, like, these key things that are happening a lot that people are just kinda suffering from. The ZBA and the planning commission prior to my time here have worked together to be like, okay, we need to do something about fences, this is ridiculous.
Right.
But at this point, we don't have that many ZBAs that come up, which does mean the ordinance is working appropriately, but we're just losing money when they do come up, is what, I guess what I'm saying.
I don't wanna get off on a rabbit trail, but at some point I'd like to discuss, before I forget about it, the notification and reaching out to our community at another time.
Okay, okay. Alright, well, yeah, so we'll take, I'm hearing some input, we'll take this back, we'll look at our fee schedule, we'll come back with an amended fee schedule, which includes our ZBA fees. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, everyone. So the next thing is the moratorium on storages. And this came about, I think, primarily because it's a concern of mine, because I've had discussion with several other people about this. Some of these facilities don't really provide any economic impact to the community in terms of jobs or collateral improvement or business activities. There are people that are just storing stuff. They might visit this facility a couple of times a month, but they don't really create any image. And my concern is that we're building these in areas that should be, I think, dedicated for more activity that would generate income. So, there's been a proposal by the Kesslers, and I told Mr. Kessler that I didn't think it was a good spot to build a storage facility south of the food bank, and west of the gas station. And it would be a monitored facility, so there would not even be an attendant at the site. And I think that we should evaluate where we want to build these and where would it have the best economic impact to the community. And therefore, I'm suggesting that we have a moratorium, and Jason's got some language that he and I have discussed about this. So this came about from my perspective. Jason?
I'll just, I mean, we recently had a pre-planning introduction to another self-storage facility that was quite a bit different from self-storage facilities that we've discussed in the past.
That's true.
And that was one that had a warehouse component with commercial. And so I felt we were unprepared that we didn't have the tools to really think through what the impact of that was, and whether that is a self-storage facility, is it like some sort of weird commercial development but it's an end run of like commercial zoning requirements, I felt like we were unprepared to really have a planning conversation about that facility. But to add to the chair's concerns, these are typically windowless, large boxes that generate minimal foot traffic or commercial traffic. And if these are located in some of our key corridors, I think we're long-range hampering retail development because overall traffic is minimized. And perhaps we should think about where within our community these are best suited, so that we can, as the chair had mentioned, retain these key commercial corridors for a development that's more in alignment with what we're looking for.
Although if I am wanting to use a storage facility, it'd be convenient to just get off the highway.
Don't you live on State? Isn't there like about 3 of them just right off the
They're
State?
all around. Yes.
Can I just talk about process?
Yeah.
Real quick in terms of, moratoriums? So you guys are definitely in the driver's seat on this one, like this all sounds like exactly what a planning commission is supposed to do, so I just wanna say, first of all, I appreciate, this planning commission's just diligence and like effort trying to help me, the staff, this community, envision like what the future of Bath Township is. With that being said, when it comes to moratoriums, obviously it's a legal mechanism that communities use. There is a process for that. I just want everyone to, have full information about what this would look like moving forward as I understand it. And that's not to say that we do have an application that was mentioned that's in play here for this land use. I believe it's totally fair and legal for a community to establish a moratorium even after the point of receiving an application.
It's not a full application, right?
The maximum one, I mean, they've applied.
Okay.
They've applied, but that would be a question that I would wanna firm up with Fahey Schultz, just to make sure we're not doing anything untoward and not putting the township in a bad, spot. But if my limited knowledge and recollection on the subject holds, I believe it's fine. It happened most frequently during the whole marijuana craze. This was municipalities were using this almost, unanimously. Every community that was looking to do marijuana was establishing some kind of moratorium, which I believe Bath Township might even done before my
Yes, we
time
did.
here. And then you got, So one of the caveats with doing a moratorium is you have to have a justification of why, and like, what's the purpose of the moratorium? You can't just say like, no, we're just gonna put a pause on this for a year and we'll reevaluate. You have to have a rationale, and then usually, to have a firm legal footing, you want that rationale to include like some kind of product of what you're gonna do with this time you're buying yourself. During the marijuana one that BAT did, for example, they did a community-wide survey, which was widely distributed and widely responded to, where they got a sense of where the community was at with recreational marijuana. And the community was overwhelmingly in favor of it, and that the board at that time was able to take that information during the moratorium phase and implement the wishes of the community and analyze their zoning during that time period. So just know that if this is done, one, I'll consult with legal counsel and determine if we're not in a bad spot. Two, that would mean that there would be some kind of product that would have to be produced, some kind of study, some kind of subcommittee, some kind of consultant brought on to analyze this. So there'd be a lot of different avenues, and the planning commission will play a big role in how we go about that. And then thing three is important. Now, from the planning, commission's perspective, you guys are charged, and girls, are charged with, you know, looking at things through the prism of land use policy. The board is not, and the board will ultimately be the ones that will have to institute this moratorium. And so you gotta think, how is this gonna be I'm not saying, I mean, this could be received great at the board, and I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be at this point. I haven't talked to them about it. But, where you guys aren't allowed to weigh things in like, funding and tax base, they absolutely are considering things like that. So, that's kind of the process. If we do go down this path, you guys would recommend it to the board would, wanna take action or, on it in some regard. And then, they would give, I guess, staff direction on how would they like us to set up a subcommittee? Are we hiring a consultant? There's lots of different ways to analyze what you're talking about here.
Jason and I have discussed several possibilities. You wanna elaborate?
Well, I'm just wondering if I made a motion that I think addresses some of the things that you concern, that gives us something concrete to then discuss.
Yeah,
Would
that's
that be
what
amenable
Yep,
to this group?
I think that's a great way to go forward.
So I move that the planning commission recommend to the township board the adoption of a temporary moratorium on the acceptance and processing of new special use permit applications for self-storage facilities effective, just throwing the date out, July 1, 2025 through December 31st, 2026, to allow the comprehensive study of self-storage facility impacts on commercial development and community character as part of the upcoming comprehensive plan update process. So the product would be sections within the comprehensive plan that would address this. This moratorium shall not apply to applications deemed complete and acceptable prior to the effective date. The planning commission shall review the moratorium every 6 months to assess progress and determine whether continuation is warranted. The planning commission further recommends that staff be directed to study self-storage facilities and impacts during the period to inform potential zoning ordinance amendments following completion of the comprehensive plan update.
I would make it 9 months instead of every 6 months. Now that we're only meeting once a month, it seems like it would take up more time than would be necessary.
So that'd be like
So if it's an
midterm.
18-month moratorium, then 9 months seems more reasonable.
Yeah. Now, 18 months, because I think that's when we'll have the comprehensive plan completed, so.
Typically, the time limit on a temporary moratorium is 1 year, is when you're on strong legal footing. You go beyond that, usually you're getting into shakier territory.
But with the comprehensive plan update as the product, we should be pretty firm, right?
I don't know, I wanna check that with legal, but
Well, and.
1 year is what planners are always taught, like, don't go beyond 1 year.
Okay.
Again, I have limited knowledge in this area, this isn't something that happens all the time.
Well, that's my motion.
Are you amending your just for our clarity for minutes, are you amending it to the March timeline, or are you sticking to December?
I'm gonna stick with December, 'cause
Okay.
I want it, I mean, unless we're gonna be completed with the plan, the comprehensive plan by March of 2026.
No.
I don't see a substantive difference, especially if it's tied to the comprehensive plan,
Okay.
since that's the product
Yeah.
that is.
I'd support that.
Okay, we got motion and support. Any further discussion? Anybody wanna discuss further? No?
So currently, where can these, storage units be placed? Just in, light industrial warehouse?
Yeah, development, they're permitted
development.
by special use permit.
I mean, I don't see a lot of that on the map,
No.
but
That would be the pink, right?
The blue, light blue.
the bottom.
This map that you passed out?
Oh, no, that's our future land use map.
Oh,
future
Sorry,
land
here, I'll
use
pull, I got you guys.
That's why.
Yeah, that's not the present zoning map, no.
Yep, hold on, I'm getting there.
Do you think you could get us one the next meeting, like you have this one?
I'm pulling up the zoning map right now.
can get one right
Alright,
now.
so it's these light blue areas.
There's quite a few of them.
So it's mostly along the expressways, or a lot along the expressway on the east side.
Yeah, Lowbell and Old M78 over here, Old M78,
Chandler.
Saginaw area, Chandler
Chandler.
area, and
Is
then off of here, I wanna.
Webster Road?
Yep, Webster Road, then that's the one that you guys are just looking at that was mentioned.
Yeah.
But it sounds like that one might not be included in the, or the Demaxing one won't be included because the application has been received.
Yeah, but it's not complete.
Why is that
true.
northern part of
That is
Webster
true.
Road development? Is that just cause that sewer goes that far? You
That's
go
what,
farther north on Webster Road?
this
where-
part?
Yeah.
I don't know, these are all good questions that should be addressed during the comprehensive review process.
I'm trying to remember, there's a couple.
I
spots.
ask myself why things are zoned the ways they are in Bath Township all the time.
So the
So-
diagonal is the old train track, right?
Yeah,
And
Yes.
that goes what, halfway up to Clay's.
yeah.
I know the township owns a parcel
Part
there.
of, part of that, yeah.
You do.
Yeah, I think that's partly the gravel pit that's there, or old gravel pit
Like even with that Allen
that the
Street.
township owns.
The zoning map and future land use map have not been comprehensively reviewed in a long time.
We should do that.
Yes, we should.
I hope we do that.
I hope we do that as part of the master plan.
Yeah, I hope we do that. Alright, so there's a motion and a second, Commissioner Almaridge, could we get a copy? Is that
No.
what- No, you did record it? Okay,
Yeah, of course.
okay.
Well, I don't hear any discussion about this, further discussion. But I think if we're gonna recommend, can we recommend this to the board in its present state, Miles, or do you want more information?
I mean, a motion was made, I'm just gonna recommend what the motion was to the board. I mean, that's how I would bring it to the board.
That's normally what we do, yeah.
After legal review?
Yeah, I mean, we'll give it, do you want that before it's brought to the board? It's probably pertinent to do so.
I think the
Yeah, I
board would
think-
ask for it anyway,
The
so.
board, I think, would want that.
So let me amend my, motion to everything that we have discussed with, prior to submitting to the board.
Okay.
Obtaining a legal review.
Okay.
But wouldn't the board need to approve the legal review because there's costs related to that?
I think we already have a line item in our budget to allow for legal review.
Yeah, I don't think the planning commission has abused legal reviews, have they?
No, not in my
I
opinion.
don't think so.
marijuana.
So, I think it's,
Hopefully we'll recover our costs there in the long run. Would you like me to bring that, just for my clarity, would you like me to execute the legal review and bring that back to you before okay, straight to the board once? If I get a legal opinion back that says like, no, don't, then would you want me to bring it back to you?
Or with significant changes.
Yeah.
perhaps.
I think if there's a
Significant.
significant.
Yeah, so what are significant changes? I mean, we're asking for
You're asking
moratorium for 18 months, right?
18 months, if they say 12.
If they say 12, is that significant to us?
No, I don't think so.
So I'd
Because
say,
we'll be
okay.
90% done with the plan.
and then the other part is, we'll be asking for staff time to help with research, right?
Yeah.
That may be, I think you need to weigh in on that. Is that something that's
No, I mean, I don't love that, but we'll,
Well, I mean,
but
that
we'll,
could also include, a subcommittee of this
Yeah.
body.
Right.
What I imagine is we look at, how neighboring municipalities, or similar municipalities, have language related to self-storage facilities, right?
yeah, I mean, we can feasibly make it happen,
Yeah.
it'll just be, there'll be other items that will push back.
Do
Well,
we need it 18 months? Can it be less than that?
I think
The reason 18 months is that the product
the
that
product.
is the comprehensive plan.
This is a comprehensive.
And I
plan.
understand and I'll communicate that with legal, I understand that rationale, we'll just check to make sure
Yeah,
that.
well,
it's
that's
good.
reasonable.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, and there's appears to be different definitions of what constitutes self-storage, which is what you and I
All
ran
another-
into.
Yeah.
When we explored this, because there's warehousing that could be self-storage, there's small business enterprises that could be utilized in self-storage.
These can all be findings of the subcommittee with recommendations of how to cure the
So-
deficiencies.
Right, there might be some definitions of what's appropriate to be called self-storage.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of clarity always.
Yeah.
Alright, so you seconded,
Yes.
Commissioner Severie, do you agree with the amendment?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Okay, so, but it's going to the board, so let's, George, you had
I
something?
just wanna understand, so that we're gonna, it's because we wanna, make sure this fits in with our master plan and that, we don't have these faceless kind of entities that don't get along with the other.
Yeah, I mean, I have 4 pages of notes of, there's various, retail displacements, once established, they're hard to get rid of. Because of profitability, or if there is oversaturation in the markets, then, to repurpose it
Yeah.
is notoriously difficult.
Okay.
And so, there's lots of different problems with this. Some of the pragmatic pieces,
Cause
especially
I
with
gotta vote on it, so I wanna understand them things.
Oh, yeah, I mean, well, there's the visual impact. Activity level, especially for key corridor areas, is probably a key factor. And so, to incentivize, say, restaurants or other developments across the street over here,
Okay,
they're gonna be looking at what's the foot traffic, what is the
right,
and, they're gonna see, well, semi-traffic to the food bank, right? They've got the gas station, which is good, but say, I don't know how large this self-storage facility, that's not gonna generate a lot of traffic. It might be like nights and weekends where people are moving stuff in and out, but not during key, or retail hours. And so
Okay.
that's gonna be a disincentive for the types of businesses that we want to,
Right.
see, grow and thrive in this location.
What about tax base and,
Yeah.
value?
The other thing too, to me,
Can-
would be just the
can-
visual impact of these things. Where do you wanna have them located so that when somebody's coming off the Webster Road exit, first thing they see is a great big self-storage place.
Right.
can I get with
Which is what
Jason
they've
to
got.
finish with a couple more, maybe?
Oh, yeah, I mean, that and then the tax base, it's
Okay.
minimal, sales tax that would be, garnered from those types of facilities. For the warehouse, things like, is that basically stealth commercial development? Is it end run around commercial zoning requirements and review processes, right? And so, is parking sufficient for a small business, a whole suite of small businesses in what we have zoned or have approved as a self-storage facility? There's just so much information that we, really need to, be informed about when making decisions on this for our community.
Thank you very much.
Then the one that we talked about
Yes.
last month, what it was?
Yeah.
Surprised me, the kind of things that people do in those self-storage facilities. To the extent that you know somebody that's actually got a restaurant set up.
Not a restaurant, I mean, if, a USDA inspected kitchen,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's not self-storage.
Oh, did they do like the Ghost Grubhub type operations? Have you seen those?
No, it's a coffee roasting operation, and then there's a dog tree operation, both within one unit.
Yeah,
So
do you
it's-
know what I'm speaking of though, those, so like
Yep.
when you order on Grubhub and you think you're ordering from
It's a
like the
ghost
Starbucks. There's some warehouse somewhere mass producing your Starbucks orders and
Yep.
saying your Starbucks is not coming from the
Starbucks.
Starbucks.
No, they're coming from the
I did
warehouse.
not know that.
They're
Yeah.
called ghost kitchens.
Yeah, yeah.
What are they called?
Ghost
I
kitchens.
know it well.
Ghost kitchens.
Ghost.
Yeah, they're,
Thank you, Jason.
What kind of vote would you like on this, Chair?
well, if it's going to the board, I want a roll call.
Okay. Would you like me to do that now?
Yes,
Okay,
unless there's a further
No.
discussion. Okay, go
alright.
ahead.
Commissioner Crainer,
Yes.
Chair Reich,
Yes,
Trustee Hagerman,
Yes,
Commissioner Severie,
Yes.
Commissioner Almaridge,
Yes.
Vice Chair Baker,
Yes.
and then Commissioner Coulter.
Yes.
Alright, unanimous.
thank you. Okay, let's move on. There's no public comment. Report from the planner.
Motion's at the top.
Okay, thank you so much, and then we'll also include the part about the amending the legal review. Alright, the only thing I have is we had a meeting earlier today with the folks from Giffords and Webster. I guess this isn't the only thing I have, but it's a major thing. We have a meeting with Giffords and Webster and the consultant that the board is using for their strategic plan, a gentleman, his last name's escaping me, his first name's Larry. He is the former head of the Michigan Township, or former director of the Michigan Township Association, so he's got a long resume and comes in very hard regard, so, anywho, we have two big planning documents that are taking place. As me and the board were discussing, time is a wasting, and we wanna get some of this rolling. I'm anxiously awaiting this process to play out. I know a lot of you are anxious to really get into some of this and do some comprehensive planning. We've been working very hard to get all the little things we need to do to get that set up to do. So, Bobby and myself also sent a bunch of data a week or so ago. GIS layers, township documents, previous plans, just massive data dump to the Giffords and Webster folks for them to review and start putting together posters, maps, calendars, historical information, cause those are all things, people don't wanna walk into a room to have an input session, and there's nothing there to give input to. So you kinda have to set up all that prior, so we've been doing that work, and that's not work you guys would necessarily see. But the fruits of some of that work are starting to come to fruition, so we have a flyer that we are making up today, and we have a kickoff event scheduled for, June 30th. It's gonna go from 7 to 9. Both Giffords and Webster and, the consultants that the board are using will be there. We're hoping Ryan will be in attendance as the chief elected officer, Ryan Shulins Bliss, the supervisor. Giffords and Webster will kick it off with kind of just like a community conversation. I think the question they'd like to pose is, what is your ideal community look like? And just get broad questions to get people talking, and they'll kind of facilitate that conversation. Then the meeting will be turned over to more of the questions that they're looking for from the strategic plan perspective, and they're gonna do some breakout sessions. With that, we're hoping, I would really hope we could get at least 20 people there. I'm really hoping that a lot of you guys would be interested in coming. I'm gonna be sending the flyer that we come up with this event out to you guys in the coming days. And for those of you that have, networks such as HOAs, that you can, push this information out to, I'm gonna request that you do so. We're trying to get broad input. We, as much as we want the same people that always come, the Friends of Park Lake, for example, are highly involved in the government process and know it well, and of course, we want them there. We also want those members of the community, the farmers in the north that are less engaged, and the residents that are maybe new residents in the south, but wanna be a part of this community to get engaged in this process, so. Yeah, so I'm excited for this process to kick off. I'm excited that we're finally starting to get some traction, and this will be our, kind of our first main event. I know some of you, have come to kind of the internal input sessions that have been going on, at least with the comp plan. We did one that was for, the chair and the vice chair of the planning commission, we had the chair of the ZBA there, we had the chair of the rec committee. And just, you know, what are their thoughts about this planning process, what are they trying to see out of that, we discuss things like housing, we discuss things like different land uses we feel in conflict. So just so Giffords and Webster can get an idea when they're writing some of, at least the layout of this document, what people are interested in. But this will be the first that's public facing. After this, there will be many input sessions that we've talked about where we'll actually go out and meet people where they are, and then there'll be input sessions with the planning commission too as a whole. So yeah, I'll get you guys a flyer, ask you guys to push it out, we're excited. Other things going on in the planning department. Oh, Ally is back from her study abroad, she was back at her first day on, Monday, so that's been good. Now that means the capacity of the planning department has gone up. Bobby's transitioning into helping us cover with some of the building and record stuff. Our record personnel, has, taken a leave of absence, I guess I'll just say, from the township. So that's kind of left a void for us, so it's been helpful that Bobby's been able to step into that records role. Records and maintaining records is a statutory requirement. I don't think it's appreciated enough how much work that actually is. Those of you that work in state agencies and municipalities, and I'm sure even at the university level, know that it's not a fun or easy task. So yeah, that's, obviously, we've been busy with developments and developers. Bath Township seems like an exciting and hot place to locate your business or house in. So it's just been a really busy time at the township. Permits are up. Do you remember what our recent permit count is at? I don't know if I've checked. I wanna say we're in the 50s.
Yeah, that sounds about accurate.
Yeah, so we're on track to either be right where we were around last year, or maybe exceed it a little bit in terms of our permit volume. Yeah, I think I'll probably, just on the staff side, I'm gonna try to make this event. Bobby may go with me if his schedule aligns. I think this is an important event to go to as well. I wish, I've talked about this a lot, I wish that, you know, we're doing a lot of cool stuff in Bath, and I just wish we had more support from the county on just a number of items. It'd be nice. So, that's all I got, Chair, thank you.
No, thank you.
One question after this report. What's the sequencing or the relationship between the strategic plan and the master plan? Seems to me the strategic plan ought to be done first, but.
Well, so that's a good point. We were trying to have as much overlap as possible, and we did have a meeting between myself, the supervisor, our consultants, and the board's consultant, to like see where our timelines would match up, to just try to not like duplicate services, cause there's a little bit of crossover. But because the board has a more aggressive timeline, it sounds like theirs will be done first, and for the comp plan, really intentionally, we have a longer engagement period. So ours will be done second.
I have a follow-up question. In what ways will the planning commission be engaged in the writing of the comprehensive plan?
Yeah,
That's unclear to me, because right now, I mean, a lot of work seems to have been done, but with no input from this body.
yeah, not any work in terms of like words on paper, the structure of the plan, like, I mean, like literally headers and like what chapters we might wanna have has been discussed between, myself and the consultants, but like, we have 0 words on paper and.
Sharing of data.
Yeah, map, well, I mean, we know for sure any comprehensive plan has to have a zoning map. And any comprehensive plan has to have a future land use map, so they need to know at least like what layers they're working with, but nothing's been made.
I mean, the concern is, I mean, the comprehensive plan is a document of the planning commission, right? It will have all our names on it.
Yeah, for sure.
As it traditionally has. It's unclear to me where we'll have input on that and whether we'll have input, since we've hired a consultant.
No, I mean, you guys will absolutely have input, I don't want you to think you won't have input. There will be sections that, like the historical context of Bath, where we'll glean what the historical context was in the other plans, there'll be like the demographic section, which we're just gonna be pulling from the census and making charts and graphs. Those should be more clear, but when we get to like the goals and the, the goals and the objectives, like, we literally can't write those without asking you what those are. So, we literally have to come to you guys and get those. So we wouldn't attempt to do those. We'll probably come with like, hey, here's what was the layout in the current comp plan, what do we like these, do we not like these, just to give you guys something to work with.
So is there a work plan that was part of the contract with?
Yeah,
So
there's a
I'm wondering if
timeline.
maybe that might be worth sharing. I think if anything, like, here's a calendar of where we expect, you know, elements of this process to occur. So it sounds like sharing of data is the first step to get some information, to have some public engagement. Then next step would be X.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the next like 4 months is really gonna be like engagement driven, and then writing will kind of follow that process. I can get you a timeline, you know, based upon just the, RFP they submitted, because it is kinda clear cut on the RFP, so I can forward that to you. But I would say too, like, your question is important, I'm sure like the public's learning it too, so I really hope you do come to this kickoff event and ask that question at the kickoff event.
Well, and then, I mean, there's another element, I mean, it was a little bit of a red flag when you were like, I hope we can get 20 people there.
Yeah,
And,
I
and
hope.
so, that makes me wonder about what is our recruitment strategy?
Yeah, like what's the marketing strategy
And
for
so if
this?
this is a combined event between the strategic planning and the comprehensive plan, I mean, at a minimum, I would expect, just like Tri-County Road Commission, sending out flyers, to all the residents of the community. And that's what, a $1,500 investment, pretty
Mm-hmm.
low investment for, you know, what is, you know, something that we want as much input as possible.
Well, I definitely think mailings are expensive, and there is always this, impetus to wanna mail out, like, I think even at the recent board meeting, they're like, oh yeah, we'll mail that out, that'll be worth mailing out. But I'll say that, at least in my experience with the non-motorized plan, we held kind of like a work session, like an input session, I think a lot of you attended that. We got the usual people to come to that event, and it was good impact and it went well, but we marketed that event, I would say pretty hard. And, I mean, and we're gonna do the same thing here, it is notoriously tough to get people to come out to these things. Again, we'll market it hard again, we are gonna put it on Facebook, we will drive around town, we will talk, I will personally be calling up the folks we have dealt with over the last couple of years and asking them to come. But engagement stuff.
Well, and it might be worthwhile to reach out to schools. I mean, I know that there are some, you know, parent communication portals. I know school's out, right? So
Yep.
that's, will be somewhat less effective, but perhaps,
I'm hoping we can get the board themselves to go out, which the school board should be more involved in these decisions because they are directly affected by these decisions. So we're taking that, and any other suggestions you guys have, like, we are open to trying to get people to get here. And we would really like to get that famous demographic of working families here that are very hard to engage with. Mostly because they're pretty busy and they don't even know what the planning commission is.
so is the library informed about this? Because they're pretty effective at getting communications out.
That's a great idea. Yeah, we'll be working with them for sure.
Just put it in the paper, nobody will read it.
Yeah, we're definitely probably
It'll be
not gonna,
cheaper.
we're definitely not gonna put in,
Well, you said, they
It's
send
just
out
not worth
a
it.
quarterly sewer statement too, and that only covers people in the sewer district.
Mm-hmm.
Right. They could put something in that.
well, if that lines up and it's because again, and to kind of to my frustration, that's why when you have so many into two consultants, two different bodies involved in trying to plan events, the timeline really gets squeezed, and we had to push just to get the timeline we got now. But we also don't wanna push it too far back, cause we wanna get the ball rolling, so it's like we're trying to thread that needle. But we got a flyer where I had to send it to both consultants to get their thumbs up, cause their names are on it. And, I'm hoping, I've told them, like, in their defense, once we got the go-ahead from our board liaison for this, which is Ryan, to just cut him out and start planning this. They've been very quick to respond and get this plan. I'm hoping to hear back from them tomorrow, and I'm hoping to have this flyer, start distributing it Thursday or Friday.
Now, is the strategic plan more of a much broader view thing, document as opposed to a
Yes,
master plan, or-
so that's a good question. The comprehensive plan, just like a quick review of that is, you're looking at it from the terms of land use policy, the same prism of information and view that we take on everything, me and you guys do within the planning division. The strategic plan is covering things like, budget, tax base, millage, questions that we're not typically thinking about. How do you fund sewer? Do we expand sewer? I mean, that was expanding sewer, and that's where there's overlap too, expanding sewer has land use implications, and has budget implications, so there is overlap. But the planning commission thinking about, rolling back the Headley rollback, to the 5 mills, or establishing a millage that fully funds police and fire, now that's not within the purview of the planning commission, even though a robust, well-funded budget could ultimately determine land use policy, cause if you can fund sewer expansion, you can change the land use.
They ought to take a look at the tax bill that goes out, and what small percentage of that comes to the township.
Yeah, for sure, and if
It's
these
not-
are things,
I looked at one the other day and said, boy, township doesn't get anything out of this.
Well, and that's
The
why-
county, the schools, and-
Yeah.
that's why this county thing's so important, cause,
Yeah.
alright, but I've talked enough.
thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Do you have anything for us?
If you're just looking for an update from our recent meeting, a couple items of note. The board approved $10,000 to help launch the Bath Fest, which will occur that first weekend in August. They have some exciting things planned for that. We also approved an ambulance service agreement with Eaton Area EMS. I had mentioned earlier that Mercy Ambulance was essentially ending their ambulance service, which they already have, sort of quietly. The township's just been relying on mutual aid to keep us covered. In the meantime, there is an agreement between Bath Township, DeWitt Township, City of DeWitt, and then also Olive Township got in on this, with Mercy Ambulance, where basically, not Mercy Ambulance, Eaton Area Ambulance. Essentially, in order for Eaton to expand their coverage into this area, they needed another ambulance vehicle. So essentially, the townships are paying fees to cover the cost of purchasing a new ambulance spread out over 4 years. It's gonna work out to about $2 per person per resident in Bath Township, which
Per year.
is a pretty good deal, compared to what Mercy Ambulance was requesting to continue the same service that we've already been getting for free. So that was really a win-win. I was really thankful that the different municipalities were able to work together with the Eaton Area EMS to make this happen for our community, because it looked a little dire there.
Could you repeat them three for me?
It's Bath Township, DeWitt Township, City of DeWitt, and also Olive Township.
Thanks.
Let's see. We had a presentation on the SCUMA budget, and, not much new with that. The Peacock Road Tree Farm applied for a Class C liquor license, and that will come back again at the next meeting. How are they zoned out there? That's rural, you're allowed to have that giant business in a rural.
We had to check on that, that was that meeting that we discussed, that me and Beth had with them, they were able to provide a special use permit that was issued by the township, and the language of that permit directly covered the land uses that are taking place there.
Classified as agritourism.
Agritourism, okay.
That's what we would classify it now, I think at the time, there was a number of land uses that they threw it under, ag was one of them.
Yeah. But now it's called agritourism.
Yeah, that's what we would
It
call that
wasn't
type
at
of
the
land
time.
use now.
Okay,
That-
is that gonna be like a separate qualification on where you can have agritourism? Can you just set up agritourism
Well, I think
anywhere?
agritourism is something that we need to talk about, as a part of this comprehensive process. It's a land use that I hope we can introduce to the rural district, and of course, this body can put restrictions on where that happens in the rural district. Or you could just put like, one way to control it would be like parcel size, agritourism can't take place on any parcels, or any parcels that are smaller than 10 acres.
Right,
or
so
something like that.
tax-wise, are they taxed the same as any other rural?
They're not, for tax purposes, when it comes to, the different uses that they have on property, like you're thinking of, do they have an ag exemption, but they're still able to run a wedding venue? No. The ag exemption will apply to the ag uses happening, but the wedding venue uses happening, or the portion of the property used for events, it gets taxed at that commercial rate. That's my understanding, I'm not a tax.
The structures that they're utilizing, wedding venues and so forth, would come under commercial.
Just curiosity.
We had
on
that
my
same
part.
question before your time on the board when the, Bengal wildlife was up for a special use, and that's how it was explained to me by legal counsel and Bengal Wildlife's legal counsel at the time.
Okay. The board has been doing some MERS training, which is the Municipal Employees Retirement System. As some changes are coming through to that system and what, retirement packages are gonna be offered to, township employees, so we've spent a lot of time reading through and discussing that. I think that's probably the gist of, recent items. I know I missed the last meeting after our May meeting, and I didn't give an update then, but, I think that's the bulk of it.
What's the contact information for the, Bath Fest? Who do people contact?
The Recreation Committee is taking that on, so that would be Adam Montry,
And that would be through the township?
and that
then?
would be through the township,
Okay,
yeah.
so if people want to contact, for
Yep,
that would be
I'm
through.
certain they're looking for volunteers, if, people want to have vendor booths, or like community groups, like the museum, for example, will probably have a booth there. All of that will happen.
And this will
to them.
mainly happen down there at the,
The James Cousins Park and Main Street with the tub races, and they're having a car show, and they're having a 5K race at the high school.
maybe a burnout?
I don't know about that. I do know that that was discussed, but I don't remember what the end result of that was, but
I can dream. Thank you.
sometimes those happen inadvertently, in my experience. But I think,
That's air pollution.
I see nothing.
But you smell it.
just not on the
Oh,
new
man.
sidewalks.
Okay, then there's no public here, so we don't need any public comment, do we? So I guess we're down to commissioner comments. Anybody got anything? Nobody's got anything?
My usual thanks to those that work behind the scenes, yeah. And then, do we wanna bring, at some point, should I make a motion to ask the planning commission to review a couple of our ordinances to maybe give us more leeway in future?
For PUDs and
Few-
those kind of things?
Yeah, I didn't know if
I
maybe
think
we
that would
wanted
be
to at least
appropriate.
think about that.
Do you want more leeway than what we just exercised
Well,
today?
I think it could be clarified.
Yeah, clarity would probably be good.
Yeah,
If we could maybe get some of that, and not just that PUD, but maybe in a couple of the other, in the condo thing, or maybe just think about it at least.
No, I think that would be good, and really like a part of the language that if you look at the grant we got to facilitate this $50,000 for planning, it's actually a requirement of that grant that we explore these things that incentivize, dense construction and explore what our language looks like and then make recommendations on how that can be shored up. Because the whole point of the grant is comes from MISTA to incentivize housing development. So we'll be looking at it.
Okay, and then I wanted to thank, the board members that do all this legwork and back work. Sometimes I come to the meetings, I try to be prepared, but I, am very thankful for those other members that bring different aspects to, let me look at things, cause sometimes I come to this meeting and I see something and I'm adamant that this is the way I feel about it. And then, because of the meeting, I'm able to look at something and see it in a different light, and I'm thankful that we as a board can, talk things out. So I'm thankful for all that extra work that's done behind the scenes. Thank you. That's it.
Anybody got anything else?
I'll just add on to that, I appreciate the disagreements.
Yes, I do
And
too.
the conversation.
That, I feel like I did an about face on the Kessler property, regarding the
That's fine.
roads, but,
That's fine.
I
You got additional information?
looked at the ordinances a little bit more closely and, realized that there was a lot more, flexibility than what I'd interpreted last time, and so.
Sometimes I ask questions, not just for myself, but I get out of the meeting and then people ask me questions and I'm like, well, that could have been answered by the person that, brought it up, or, and also, when you were talking about the points, it's not just for me to know, but it's for the public to know also.
Yeah, but I think that goes back to what you're suggesting, it's having clear decision-making as to when we allow for flexibility versus not allow, and if there's conflicts in the ordinance where, it seems like we want something, but then we have overall flexibility,
To work through it.
how do we make a decision at that point?
Well, to that extent, Miles and I have talked about a number of areas in the language that we'd like to clear up. And if you'd like to have us, I'm sure he and I can get together, or any of the other
You can do that in
commissioners.
spare time.
We could get together and talk about some of those language areas. I visited East Lansing Storage for an hour and a half on last Friday and was very upset with what's going on over there. I don't know that we intended for that to be a rental place for U-Haul trucks and trailers and a whole bunch of outdoor storage in that back area that adjoins to the MDOT properties. There's a lot of erosion going on back in there because they didn't make a hard surface there to park on. It's all millings, and it's washing over into the MDOT property in some areas. And John Morrison and I visited that. They're gonna have to do some clean out on that pond they got back there, the retention pond, cause there's probably at least 30 or 40 yards of material that's washed into that. And there's also two areas where there's still runoff onto Hosford's property that's coming off their parking lot. And he's gonna give us a full report on that. I don't know how we deal with that issue, Miles, especially the outdoor storage thing, cause I didn't realize that they were even gonna do outdoor storage when they gave us a site plan.
It's on their site plan.
Is it?
Yeah, and that one is a frustrating, but you see when we bring these, we have these list of conditions. And
Yeah.
the reason that I put those in every time is because
Yeah.
I need tools in the toolbox for enforcement later. And that hasn't always been the tradition in Bath Township.
No,
So it limits our tools.
yeah.
Are they meeting their landscaping, along the highway there, do you know?
They're landscaping along the highway.
Yeah, they're screening,
Yeah, I mean, I can double check, I mean, that's a, cause
Seems-
it does have a landscaping plan, if the landscaping doesn't match the plan, that's an area where
It
you
just
can
seems pretty
enforce.
visible when you go by there, it just,
The landscaping that I'm more familiar with is their buffering between the Hosford property and theirs, which I know for sure that's good. I have not had any complaints or concerns about the other side, so I'll look into it.
I was just curious.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I got. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn, I guess.
So moved.
Support.
Those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed?
I'm almost there.
By the way, this East Olive Center is on Green Road, which is the next road north of Allward Road. And this community center is about a mile from 127 going east on the north side of the road. So if anybody wants to attend, I assume a number of us will be attending there.